faceta.
About EVE Online. I am your host, Matterall. Today, we're going to review 2018 with some very key players for this year. We're going to have the most influential, voted by TIS staff. The most influential player or individual would be Pandorolica. We'll meet him in just a second. We have most influential organization, which is Test, and we'll meet Vili, one of their leaders, in just a second. We're also going to go through the year and talk about all the events that happened with these guys who were key decision makers during the year. But first, I want to make just a couple of announcements. And one is that this is going to be the last show that we do on INN for the last 2 years. Actually, since the beginning, Talking in Stations has been a part of Imperium News. And we are moving on to try to control the video a bit better and be able to replay shows and stuff like that. And to do all that kind of thing, we need to move to our own channel. So we're still in a good relationship with INN, but we're going to start broadcasting these shows on Stations Twitch. And we'll be moving them to YouTube as quickly as possible, maybe just a few hours after the show. That would be a lot faster than we've been able to do it on INN. So we're also going to do some other things for you. TIS will be changing. We'll be sending out some newsletters type things to your mailbox if that's what you want. So we'll be firing up a mailing list in-game and out-of-game as well. And that way you don't have to travel to any news site or look at Reddit if you want to catch up on what's going on in EVE. Very, very basic general strokes, a few mails a week, that kind of thing. So we'll see. Also, at this point, and I'll repeat this at the end of the broadcast, if I remember, we want to make sure that TIS is growing. You know, like EVE, if you're standing still, you're just slowly dying. So we need to be growing and doing new things and making it exciting to keep people interested in doing the show. To do that, we need contributions. So please go to talkinginstations.com and contribute to the program so you can keep it going. And we can keep growing and keep us interested in doing this sort of thing. Thank you very much. Now, another announcement I'd like to make is not a usual type of announcement we make, but it is just so tragic that we lost an EVE player just a few days ago after Christmas on the 28th. Luke Batters, he's from England, plays a character, Diana Serene, and they're from the Volition cult. And this is particularly sad because he and his father used to play EVE together, and his father eloquently wrote about him. And there's a GoFundMe page, which you can find. We'll post it in the show notes, and I'll post it in chat. And it just reminds you that this terrible game we play is something that brings people together, including fathers and sons, and that kind of anything that interrupts that kind of relationship is just super tragic, and we're very sorry that happened. But again, I bring it up because GoFundMe to help with some expenses was funded like within 3 hours. I imagine a lot of that was real life friends as well. But it's nice to see EVE players always come up and really show the best of what EVE is about, and that is the supportive community that cares about each other and that sort of a thing. So again, not something we talk about, but I'm starting to think, and I've had some talks with other people, that maybe there should be a place for preserving the memory of some of these players that have fallen, and we'll think of what we can do to make that happen. And maybe we'll have just a simple gesture and have a page on talkinginstations.com that serves as a memorial where people can tell some of the stories that the players did while they were around with us. Okay. Our condolences to Volition Colts and the loss of their member, Diane Serene. There's certainly going to be memorials with sinos and stuff. Join them when you can. Okay. All right. So let's actually switch gears here, and I want to talk about one thing before we really get started. But first, here's the introductions. I want to say hello to Pando. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Pando is one of the FCs for the initiative, and he is also selected as our most influential individual for 2018, and we'll get into why as we go through the year. I also want to say hello to Villy. How are you doing, Villy?
Doing excellent. Thank you.
Villy is also an FC, very well known to most of the fans of the show, and he is one of the leaders of Test, and one of the key individuals that has really brought it back to life and had, I think, what is a stunning year in 2018. We'll talk about how that happened as well. Also, rounding out, we have from NC, somebody who's very familiar to the show, Killer B. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Great, thanks for joining us. Also a key player during the year, doing a lot of a huge amount of fighting early in the year when the biggest battles were going on. So this is great. We have some great people lined up for a review of the year, and I'm going to sit in and be a big fanboy too, and listening as these guys talk about what happened last year. All right, but first, there's one thing I want to talk about, and that is something that we're in the middle of, and that is the injector booster craze. And I don't know if you're a part of it. It seems to be an expensive thing to get involved with, but wow, is it worth it? As you know, there's a booster that's gone out as a gift, and if you use it, you're allowed to put a full 3 skill injectors on a character, regardless of what experience they have. And this is something very rare, because normally you have to lose a lot of experience to these injectors when you get to be too high an experienced character. Well, this is bypassing it, and you can do it every 16 hours, which I have been, on 4 characters. And you can imagine it's a lot of injectors and a lot of boosting. A couple key significant points to this. One, the boosters didn't cost anywhere near what I thought they would cost. So people are just dumping them. I thought they would be like 1 to 2 billion, and they're actually like 50 million. So, apologies. I hope nobody else took a bath on it. I certainly did. But the good news is that they are working as we suspected they would work. And so every 16 hours, I'm boosting, putting experience into characters and banking it. So that experience can sit there and wait for some kind of, use down the road. Now, let me bring these guys in. Villy, you were talking about how this has been a boon for your business, right? Since you are in Perimeter with a tax haven there.
Yes, the Tranquility Trading Corporation is currently in control of the Perimeter market, which is the primary trading place of your favorite skill injectors. We fully encourage everybody to come on over and buy up your injectors today. Use discount code TESTISAWESOME, and you will receive an extra 0.1% off your...
Wow, 0.1%? Is that for real?
No.
That might add up.
If there was a way I could actually give you a discount, I'm sure we would, but there's no mechanic that I'm tracking.
There should be a way to introduce discount codes or whatever. The discount
it'd be so awesome.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, that would be hilarious. And actually would save people some money, because these things, the boosters didn't get expensive, but these other things, the injectors, have gone up to record highs. So if you wanted to buy skills, now is the worst time. They're at 70 million per injector. So you can imagine that's a ton of money.
Like 180 more than they were, a month ago?
Yeah, that's a steep incline. So that's interesting, because I knew they would go up. I thought that there were so many skill farmers sitting on them that they would just, maintain supply and kind of keep it down. But
I actually redid all my math the other day based on
all
of the actual things that you can do for skill farming. And actually, injector prices have not been lower than they should have been. So they're tracking now with Plex again pretty well. They've been just floating around a lot. A lot of it's just been cheap Plex, and that went up a lot with this event and in anticipation of this event. That's the thing everyone's sort of not been talking too much about. has been that track from 3 million to 3.3 ish, and then it's kind of leveled back down a little bit.
So that is Opner Dresden, and he is now in NC, but former DCU, which would be the drone regions. How are you, Opner? Thanks for coming.
I am good. Sorry, I spaced. I thought we were getting on at like 9 West Coast.
It's okay. The time shifts around. We'll get that nailed down. But yeah, so are you participating, Opner?
In the injector, only as a seller. I decided to waive off on this one. I'm hoping CCP makes this more of a routine giveaway.
Well, that's one of the complaints is this does the exact opposite of what the diminishing returns on injectors were supposed to do. In other words, if you're a new player, you get the full benefit of injecting experience points or skill points. But if you're a veteran player, you get only a fraction, 20, 30% of the experience, the SP, the skill points.
Not even.
Or 150,000 out of 500. So it's really meant to kind of let people catch up to the players who've been around for 10 years. And
So
this-
I think there's a counter argument there
Okay.
that most of the players that got their 80 million were well on their way or already there when skill injectors became a thing. So it's not like we designed around it. And I have seen younger players who have been at an advantage where they injected themselves in much more strategically and got just not just a huge time savings, but a huge focus savings in that they were able to skip around a bunch of off trains. So there's something to be said for, hey, I want to diversify this character a little bit. Here's, a seasonal event. I agree that removing it entirely might be bad for the mechanics of the game. And this, in fact, might be a bad idea for the game at all. But once they pulled that trigger, now it's kind of there. If they make it a one-time thing, it seems sort of a waste. Personally, I'd love to see these as an AT prize because I think it fits into the vein of the AT. And I think it's something to reward players for doing that sort of thing. But that's one of those things where I think there are game systems that we utilize where these could be more focusly used in a way for a reward.
What do you other veterans think of these things? Are they a waste? Are you guys just cashing in? What's going on? Hello.
I'm cautiously viewing these things. As much as I think it's actually a good opportunity to give long-term players the ability to inject a little bit at full capacity. I do not think it's a positive thing overall. I think most of the players that are in the area where diminishing returns really comes into effect shouldn't be in the position to further inject. I think it's great that they can do 3 or 5 million SP. That's fine, whatever. But once you start creating a situation where they can plug in 20 or 30 or 40 million SP, I start to worry that becomes a situation where you're going to have a lot of people with extremely older characters that are just going to get a free ride to go even further up the chain. I don't know if it's necessarily a positive thing in that regard. A little bit, sure, yeah. Somebody needs, the last commenter is right there in that it has been a situation where older characters have been on kind of the bad end of certain things where if I need to train up my combat alt number 4 for a Rourke, well, my combat alt number 4 already has 140 million SP, so it's going to be the standard 5 or 6 month train to do so. And I think that's fair to a degree, but it is nice to finally have a little bit of an opportunity to speed that up. That being said, I don't necessarily think that should be the norm.
I definitely think at this price point, it's a horrible thing. If it needs to have the expense in there somehow. And if we can transfer that wealth from older players to newer players, I think that might be a healthier thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree.
I think it doesn't even have that much influence, to be honest. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The game needs people in space, undocking, doing stuff. And if people do it with more or less skill points, it doesn't even matter that much. I think it's not that big of an issue, positive or negative.
Interesting.
My worry is that it just goes towards pay to win further and further kind of thing. As far as injectors currently stand, they're very much a situation where you can help catch up newer players with older players to pay to win a little bit. But with this situation, it's literally just older players, and especially richer older players, in a situation where they can pay to further grow their skill set, which allows them to outcompete younger players.
I think somebody was mentioning there's a few people who are in the forums talking about this, which is really interesting. The guy made a video to explain why he thought it was a bad idea, which is pretty good. I forget his name at the moment, but you can check that out. And one of the things was and this is the point that I made, it's allowing me to clean up alts, make them a lot more focused. And it's also allowing me to merge some of those alts back into mains. So I could play with less accounts. And so maybe this is counterproductive in the long run.
Along that line, maybe something that might be better would be an SP reset. Something like being able to reallocate 10 or 20 million SP into your unallocated pool. And that might be something that maintains that lack of ability to progress further, but lets you reshape around game changes that have come over your time.
Mm-hmm.
But that, there may be other issues to that.
Oh, well, last thing on this, the price injectors were so high. I thought, well, like you go to the, I'm kind of leaning towards vegetarian, so it's a bad example, but you go to the meat market and you're like, oh, the price of steak is too high. I think I'll buy a cow with a neighbor and then we'll make our own steaks. So I went to the Character Bazaar to find my own SP zombie that I could extract a bunch of SP from. And I ran into 2 scams immediately. So I'm not sure that's the best way to continue. Find a friend or something. But the Bazaar is a total I don't know. If there's a deal that's pretty good, it's actually too good to be true. And then the people selling characters that are legit are really focused, so they're overpricing them for the skill points anyway. That said, CCP is all over it, and they refunded money to me quickly, and they're all on top of that whole market. So
yeah, the Bazaar. If you're scamming on the Bazaar, you're going to get yourself banned real quick. CCP doesn't mess around on that stuff.
Yeah, they got to preserve the integrity of it, so they're blasting people left and right.
Well, are
anyway.
people actually banned, or is
it's like an auto ban if you try to scam on the Character Bazaar.
Well, that makes sense.
It's an auto ban for you and everything you own. Like you're not coming back. All your accounts are banned completely. Yeah, so if you're actually thinking of doing a scam, don't. Character Bazaar is like a sanctuary from CCP, and they will mess you up if you try to scam people there.
To talk to your guy in chat, like the scams on the Character Bazaar, there's no way to tell them, because the only difference between a scam and a legit sale is that the scammer just doesn't sell you the character. Like, they stop at one of the processes after you give them the money. That's why it's such a protected situation, and why CCP doesn't mess around. Because if people just all of a sudden, it's like, okay, I've sent money, send character now, and you're like, nope, I'm not going to send you the character. And then, there's no way to know that's the scam. So, CCP is in a position where it has to be a protected situation, and they will auto ban anyone who messes with the Character Bazaar pretty instantly.
Yeah, they're fast. I was really amazed at how fast they really cracked down on it.
Well, EVE's a game where you're allowed to scam in 90% of situations. So if you're dumb enough to try and scam in the 10% where you're not allowed to scam, good luck.
Plus, it's one of those things where it's in line. There's real money transactions going on a lot of the time with it, because you've got people paying with.
Oh yeah, fraud obviously, and
and also
real life legal implications.
So there's a ton of reasons, and it's technically out of game, right? This is a very next level up thing. Like, you're not doing any operations in a client. You're literally just doing account maintenance on yourself. So it's not an area where they can just be like, oh no, go do what you want. Yeah, it wouldn't be a thing. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, there's not a lot of interpretation, or even the law just comes down and gets everybody sorted, and the people who try to scam are gone like immediately.
I remember before skill injectors were a thing, before Rise's post on them, they talked about maybe doing an in-game client for character transfers. And then if that were a thing, I think there'd be an argument to be made for, yeah, creative marketing would be an allowable thing so long as the in-game client mechanics were like really solid and everything was clear. But if you told someone they were getting, a 100 million SP tune and they got a 20 million one and they didn't look at the actual sheet, okay. But that didn't happen. So instead we got skill injectors.
Yeah. So as I said, I've been doing that on 4 characters. I'm about halfway. I've timed it so every 16 hours works. There's one injection at midnight, one injection at 8 in the morning, one injection at 4, and that cycle is livable, right? Because you can sleep between the 2 cycles. But it does cost a lot of money, and I was wrong on my calculations. You can get a maximum of 36. I believe it's 36 million on each character that you do this for. So it is a big boon and this is all bankable, right? So if new stuff comes out, you'll have the SP to get right into it, and that sort of thing. I don't think, as Pando said, it's going to be a game changer for most people, but it is an awfully nice gift for veterans at a time when the company is in transition, right, to a new owner. And so it seems like it's a nice little giveaway to people who've been here a long time and been loyal for a long time. All right. Oh, and last thing I wanted to ask, Billy, is this good for business there? You have your new Keepstar up and around JITA, and this is where most of the transactions are happening.
Oh, yes. Business is booming. We appreciate all the work CCP is doing to make sure that we not only we've well past paid for the Keepstar, but we're into our second or third Keepstar now. This is awesome. Well done, CCP. Really love your initiative to make us money.
Well, it's your initiative to capture a high-sec market, and it's a mechanic that CCP hasn't really nerfed, right? It's allowing you to skirt the in-game taxes as a player organization. So
yeah, well, the thing is, if you buy at the Tranquility Trading Tower, you're paying 0.3% tax instead of 3% tax. So everything you buy, comparatively to JITA, it should be about 2.7% cheaper. Which, when you're talking about things that are in the scale of multiple billions of ISK, that adds up pretty quick. And especially if you're a trader, that adds up, even more effectively when you're cycling through your inventory of multiple billions multiple times a day. So it's one of those things where controlling the market allows you to or utilizing the market allows you to make gains that you would not be able to make otherwise.
Wild. All right. Well, that was one of many tests, great acts this year. But let's start with Pando. Thanks for coming, Pando. Can you tell us where you were in January of last year? What you guys were up to?
If I have to think back, January, I'm not exactly sure. I think we were just keeping activity high, just maintaining activity, and then waiting for the next big thing to do. We weren't particularly active in any of the war scenes, I think. I'm not sure actually.
Yeah.
What exactly did we do in January?
I think you were when did you snag MCs? That was October, right, of the year before. You guys snagged a Keepstar that was unanchoring. You blew up the freighter that was trying to take it away. And then in January, you guys were probably poking around Pureblind area, if anything, when Horde was still there. Horde used to occupy that area.
Yeah.
And the Goon SIGs were coming up and raiding that area. Now, I don't know if you were raiding first or the SIGs were, but that was kind of what was going on there until 9-Tech-4, which was actually pretty early January.
Yeah, I think so. When Horde was still around, we missed them very much because they're always like great for activity, not only for Horde and themselves, but like a lot of groups actually go there and try to get some fights. So you can always find something around Horde, to shoot. And we were probably just poking them here and there. We didn't overfarm them or anything. We didn't constantly drop into their Care Bear pockets. We did it here and there. I'm not sure if we dread bombed them in January or like at the beginning of the year. We probably did here and there, but we didn't go overboard with it. Like we didn't make an effort to crush them or anything.
Right. You try to keep it going.
Yeah, and then
what about-
like I'm not sure when SV deployed. Might have been not January, but maybe like a couple months later.
SV is
2 months
SV
later.
is Space
yeah,
Violence.
SV is Space Violence, yeah. They're led by Kenda, for those who don't know. And Reavers also followed up soon after that, I think. And then we tried to help them as good as we could, especially at the beginning. It was a little bit tough because those fights are quickly, like, it's cruiser-sized stuff. So if the fight kicks off, you have maybe 10 minutes to get there. And then for us, it would have been like a couple gate jumps, a Titan jump, maybe another, a handful of gate jumps. So that's already too much. So a lot of fights were missed, actually.
That was your area, wasn't it? Fountain, just above Fountain. The Goonswarm would have had to have gone through your territory. It's your territory, you guys share the territory, but up to the area. What were you guys thinking when those kind of skirmishes were going on up there in the north?
Well, so
Do you think it was going to open up to something bigger?
actually, at the beginning, like it wasn't. I'm not sure if that was actually the big plan to weaken them so much to actually start something bigger. But there certainly was that thought, like, let's see what's happening, and that's what we did first, right? So we stayed in J5A, see, that's in Fountain, see what's happening, and then if there's a good opportunity, we're gonna go and do stuff. But yeah. Our reaction was just like, yeah, great. There's a couple of good fights, so let's have some fun. That's all we focused on.
Killer B, before 9TAC4, you were up in NC. I believe you'd made the transition by then, right?
I done the NC in
NC
November 2018 or 2017 rather.
Were you keeping your eye on Pureblind?
At the time, we were deployed down. When I joined, I joined from PL to NC. We were both deployed down to Curse, and we were messing with catch stuff from test mostly. And well, we actually so this whole thing started up with PL deploying down to Curse in early 2017 or like mid 2017, sometime around. I actually can't remember exactly when PL deployed. But we basically started messing with everybody in the area, which at the time it was Brave, it was Pravi, it was what's it called? Legacy. It was like Test and FCON as well back then. So we just kind of started messing around with everybody around us. And then timers got bigger and bigger, and PL was struggling to fight the big timers on their own. So NC deployed down as well to assist. And that's basically when I swapped, because obviously it's very convenient when you're staging, when your new alliance is staging one jump from your old alliance. So I literally just put all my shit in my carrier, jump to another citadel, and I was done moving pretty much. And yeah, we were just kind of messing around with everybody around Curse at the time. And we started to, I think, put some more pressure onto Pravi specifically at the time. So we weren't particularly worried about Pureblind and Fate at that time, because we were obviously coordinating and talking to Horde and GUTG, who pretty much told us, yeah, we can handle this on our own for now. So we put our faith in them. We told them, okay, if you guys got the situation up there under control, we're going to continue to do stuff down here. And that's pretty much silence. I think you're muted.
Yeah, wrong button. Opner, what was going on with you guys in January? Where were you and what was going on?
DCU was celebrating like the upswing right after Russian New Year, and then we were kind of trying to push through, and we started trying to reinforce Try's Keepstar, which they are making like an annual tradition of losing a Keepstar during the holidays, I guess, in CTAC-J.
Actually, I think it was another one recently.
Yeah, I think it was next door actually, but it's that was kind of the high point, I guess, for DCU during the war. And then I left DCU February 1st, I think was the actual day, because that war wrapped up and we saw writing on the wall and decided it was time for a new change of scene.
I always thought that was interesting. You guys ended up winning against DCU's drone control unit, part of the drone regions. They ended up winning against Triumvirate, but right after that, they kind of lost the war, or I wouldn't say lost the war, but they disbanded.
I mean, a lot of people stuck around long enough to push through, and then started making their exits, like me. I think I was the first in that domino. I didn't expect a lot of people to do it, but people had talked about it. And just a lot of people in, especially the English-speaking side, came to drones to rebuild, or it was supposed to be like a temporary thing. I think thinking back, like Boss with Star Frontiers, they were one of the few groups that came there with the intention of like setting up for a long-term thing. The rest of us kind of came there as like, well, it's something to do, it's space to have, and it's a place to get some ISK. And it became more after a little while. And then by the end of it, we all just wanted to transition to a different part of the game. So even Boss with the same thing, they folded up and went to test right at the opening of the war, because they wanted to do that transition too.
Who was making it hard on you? Was it Hard Knocks?
Hard Knocks had the most, I think, long-lasting effect because they started first from the north. And they kept the most consistent pressure. I have a big feeling that that whole war was all about consistent pressure from all sides. So Hard Knocks started in the north, Volta in the center, and then Skill U pushing from the south was sort of the final thing that made Dronelands really unappetizing for people to live in, and started making me wonder what they were going to have at the end of the war. Because even winning, like, there was no solid cohesive effort to be like, oh well, we're going to actually clean out Dronelands. Because that would have been an insurmountable task to try to tell people like, hey, I know you guys just fought 6 months trying to defend, the southeastern half of New Eden. Now you're gonna have to grind through a whole bunch of stuff from people that don't really care about their space in any effective way. So you can't really force them into bad fight. There was no motivation there for that.
So let me move down to Villy, who's in catch at this point, and PL is. I don't know if they're attacking you. There was a huge dread fight. I remember that. And you gave a rousing speech. I think that's captured on video somewhere. Billy, what was going on with you guys in January? Oh, it was March. I was much later.
Yeah, so in December, we had just finally anchored our U-Q Keepstar, which was the first, technically the second test Keepstar ever at the time. How things have changed now, obviously. LOL. But it was a pretty big milestone in kind of our catch defense plans. We had just restaged to UQ right after fully. We were basically cutting off PL's deployment in Curse into catch. So basically what happens is you go through the UQ to, what gate is it? Jamunda? No, it's
no, it's
Fat.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what the hell the system is called now, which is crazy considering how many times I've gone through that gate. But basically, like it's the regional gate from Curse into Catch that UQ Keepstar is directly on. So anytime. Oh shit! Yes. Oh shit! Thank you. And
it's OSHT or TAC-T or something.
Yeah, it's literally oh shit. So we cut off their entrance into Catch, prevented a lot of their harassment opportunities. We had a Fortizar in Oshit, which was on the other side of the gate, that they harassed quite a bit. I remember defending that every week for, I think, 4 or 5 weeks. That was when they were really pushing hard with the Bush Rocks, and we were getting practice at fighting those. Around that time, we were also in the process of clearing out all the catch, I guess we call them troll citadels, as well as starting to make some progress in, I guess you would call it, Western Amencia, trying to clear up some of the old Red Alliance space, as Red Alliance was just starting to reconquer some of the FCON stuff, and we were interested in taking it from them.
Right.
There were some good fights there. I like those. Some of them were really good with Red Alliance and you got.
So I think the first big thing that happens in January is that all at once the Imperium decides they're going to attack this Horde Keepstar that was just too far out from the rest of the North, and that is in 9 Tech 4 RP2. I believe that's Cloud Ring. It's not even Pureblind. So that was a huge fight. As you know, that's the one where it was coined the $1 million fight possibility by Pro God Legend, and it attracted a ton of audience. We took it live, and I think Vili was kind enough to tell us what was going on screen as the Imperium assaulted this Keepstar, and we had 12,500 viewers on, which is a lot for EVE Online, live for like 6, 7, 8 hours. So it was a big deal. And Killaby, you were one of the FCs involved in that fight. Can you put that in perspective for us?
Well, it was interesting because this was sort of like post Hakonnen deployment in 2017, which was basically after 2016, Goons kind of went to Delph. They started building up their industry, their economy, and everything in Delph. And the main objective of the Northern leadership at the time was basically to keep them contained in Delph and not allowing them to project power outside of it. And then the Hakonnen deployment happened in some summer 2017, right? And the Hakonnen deployment was the first big Imperium deployment after 2016, after World War B or the Casino War. And that Hakonnen deployment failed pretty miserably, but Goons learned a lot from it, and they tried to use what they've learned in that deployment and test new stuff. And the assault on 9 Tech 4 was the first major push after that deployment, so it was a very interesting situation in that perspective, because they went all out on it too. They started hitting stuff. They deployed their supers up. They deployed their Titans up. This was the first time that had ever happened, and it was the first time we sort of saw the results of their, insane economy that they've been building up in Delph. There were quite some people in the Northern leadership that have underestimated the value of an economy like that by a lot. And they were like, yeah, but all that ore isn't going to do them any good because they can't project power outside of Delph. And then 9 Tech 4 happened. Everybody was like, oh shit, they are now projecting power outside of Delph. We were able to shut that down. I think it was a mix of our strategy. Obviously, at the point, I'm not sure that had anyone ever really assaulted a Keepstar like that before. I think at the time the main strategy, the main strategy that Goons tried was using their fighters K off the Keepstar and then sending the fighter. Main strategy that most people used at the time to assault Keepstars is what we used in MTech-0, and that's what Goons tried to use. But that strategy turned out to be ineffective because of the tie-dye, because of just the way drones affect the server and the server spaghetti in general. So the whole assault on 9 Tech 4 didn't really work out for Goons the way they wanted. But again, they did learn a lot from it. And then obviously now everybody assaults Keepstars with, if they can, they assault it with just Titans, because there's effectively no way to stop the DPS on a Keepstar if you just put 10 long range Titans on it, whatever. So it was a big learning experience for them and for us as well. And then they used that knowledge as well that they gained from 9 Tech 4 and from the Hakonnen deployment. The Imperium kind of gathered all that knowledge, and they used that on their most recent assault on the North, which we'll probably talk about later. But obviously, they managed to translate all that. They've learned into some very good strategies that they've used against us, and that proved to be pretty successful.
Anybody else in that fight want to comment on it?
Well, I was there. I wasn't FCing, but yeah, it was a shit show with the fighters. It was just a fucking mess. A little bit sad. Was hyped to no end, obviously, and then it turned out to be this, what do you call it? I don't know, underwhelming kind of experience.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Nothing even died, right? If you
yeah,
think
well,
it's not even attackers. Yes, the Keepstar didn't die, but also the attacking force didn't, nothing impactful really happened, if you know what I mean. But yeah, we gained experience on the Imperium side, definitely.
Not initially, but one thing outside of the game, it did become the biggest battle in video game history, so it got into the Guinness Book of World Records in that way.
Yeah, but that's just honestly, okay. This whole biggest battle, it's just literally just PR for CCP. It really doesn't matter.
I just mean that's what happened outside the game, but inside the game, Horde, I think, made plans to leave the area after that fight, and they were trying to get that Keepstar out for a while, right?
No, the plans to leave were before the fight.
Oh, really?
That was well intentioned. They were unanchoring it specifically to move to Gemini.
And I think Panda was keeping them. Were you keeping them locked down?
Once we refed it together with Asher, Asher was very determined. Like he took that thing personally, I think, a little bit, and it shows his character. Right? He's not, hiding because he failed once. He's looking at like, how do we get back at them? So we refed it together with Asher once to just keep it from unanchoring. And then it's not that easy if you like. We basically knew we're not going to kill it, but we're just going to delay it. And obviously there was, it was time critical for Horde 2. Probably they wanted to deploy at a certain time, and we kept that from happening. And then I had to ref it once on my own because there was actually a misunderstanding. I thought like goons are bringing like a main fleet and everything, and we're just gonna do it then. But apparently everyone was just relying on us to ref it again. So we went there and refed it again in Ravens, and we lost like almost the entire Raven fleet. But we got it refed, and it was like everyone in range. So I was still pretty proud of the achievement, reffing a Keepstar as a single alliance under the noses of like all the northern alliances. Basically, they were all in range. I'm sure NC was used to Ravens by then, so but we got it done anyway, even though we had to pay. I'm not sure how much ISKA was. I would guess it was probably around the 10-20 bill mark, something like this, which is probably peanuts by now, but like back then it still hurt. But yeah, we got it done.
Was it
These are
when I
your,
walked after you with my Titans? That
was the
it was a fort,
armor
right?
timer, I believe. No, I think that was the armor timer when
Okay.
we just went in there like we knew we're not going to ref it again, so we went in there trying to maybe snack kills here and there and see what happens. Maybe get some
Yeah,
experience.
you got a couple of frags as well, right? I respect that.
We killed a couple, we lost a couple. I was a little bit, the Titan walking after us. I have to admit, like I was thinking about that. How do we get him? How do we get him? I believe there's ways, but there has to be so much to be done right with the right timing. You guys have to make a mistake even, and then we could catch him. But it's a stretch, and the opportunity never came up again. So.
Is this what Titan is this that you're talking about, Killer B?
Oh yeah, that's obviously his Vanquisher.
It's not a typical Titan, right? It's a faction Titan.
Well,
They're pretty typical these days. Not really that special
yeah, it's
anymore.
a faction titan that's nice to kill, but if it's Killer B's faction titan, the main FC from NC Dot, it adds a little bit on the value, I believe. At least for
Just
me,
a
I'm
little
not
bit, right?
this guy. If there's a high price tag on it, it's all great, but it has a different kind of value on it, obviously.
That was
he
this
knows
post.
that, right?
Yeah, that was this post by the leader of Kings, Rooks and Kings, and he was talking about back in the day when these ships had names and they had like reputations, the ships themselves. So, Killer B, what's your Vanquisher called?
I don't know what's it called right now. To be honest, I'd have to log in to see.
Anyway, there was a time where ships were so valuable they were given names like swords, right? Like some kind of a hero would have a certain weapon. All right, so rounding out January and February, anything else that was going on with you guys? I guess we can talk about. I'll let you guys answer if there's anything else you want to talk about in that area. And if not, we'll talk about something that leads into further conflict, and that is Pandemic Legion at this time is attacking Providence. It's a bit early, but they're trying to capture all these stations that are going to be movable and capturable, and they're going to steal them away from Provi. So PL goes in there and really, with a little help from NC, kind of wipes out the area. At around this time, also, Elo Knight has returned to the game. He's another FC. Couldn't be here today. He's away from home. but he reestablishes Origin and Black Legion now with 3 dots, which is kind of funny. So Elo Knight, always a wild card, comes back, and then I think Test goes after.
There wasn't so much thinking behind it. We had been assisting Providence and Jintan and the crew in Providence for most of PL's campaign against them, which started, I think, in February. Every weekend they would set their Citadel timers the weekend, and we would try and bring up 200 or 300 capitals to try and support them and make sure that things went okay. But after a while, you go up with 200 or 300 capitals, you form, and you go 2-3 jumps, and you get blue balled. Sooner or later, your numbers decrease and decrease and decrease until you're at the point where you can't take the fight. And then PL started making some progress, and bit by bit, they chewed through a lot of the important Providence structures. Eventually, they had chewed through most of the important Providence structures, and they began pushing southward towards Catch. And they ended up on our border in Delta Tech Gulf, which is one of the few systems in Providence that's in direct range of our Catch staging. And they had an Athenor there, and they were using it to Titan Bridge on us. So we reinforced it, and then we had kind of the monumental fight of DTAC G over that single Athenor. And that fight was pretty crucial in terms of proving the viability of shield supers against Dread Bomb. It was a pretty massive victory for us in terms of killing 300 dreads, I think it was, at the cost of 1 Titan, 40 facts, and 10 dreads. And I think just at that point, it was a pretty crucial growth component of our super fleet for the next 6 months kind of thing. It was a really important confidence.
Yeah, was that the first time you'd beaten back Pandemic Legion in a significant way like that?
I think that might be accurate to say, yeah. I mean, we'd had fights with PL, and we definitely beat them on the subcap field many times, but they'd always had that looming Dread Bomb in Curse Providence area that we knew was there, and it was always kind of an axe that hung over our heads kind of thing. And we finally got an opportunity to just deflect and destroy that axe, and it was pretty crucial to the way we had hoped to grow.
Yeah. So what were you thinking in that fight when you saw the dreads come in?
Here we go. I know, it's. I always knew that the facts would hold the way I thought, but I'd spent the better part of a year and a half, if not 2 years, trying to explain to people how it would work, and the amount of haters and people who didn't understand the mechanics who I would have to explain it to over and over and over and over again. And, like on our own forums, and, we had multiple people who was just like, oh no, once you get dread bombed by 50 dreads, your shield titans are dead instantly. And I'm like, no, it's not how it works. A single Minakawa, it transfers 17-1 on newts or something like that. It's pretty crazy. So anyways, people never quite got it, but so you have to kind of show how something works before people will accept that it works. Somebody has to lead the way, and we managed to lead the way and prove that shield supercaps are indeed viable and effective.
Yeah, and
that was a really crucial point for us.
And this is one of the reasons that TESS was selected this year, is because you were one of the few groups really championing, shield doctrines on the supercap level.
Yeah. you have my old rambling about supers SoundCloud out. That's hilarious.
Yeah. That was a really interesting fight, by the way, because it was put into context through a video that was made by, I think, Adon, and it was a great video, and there's this rousing speech in the middle of it, and you say, now is the time to show them we're not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of these guys, except with their super capitals. I'm still afraid of those. And then everybody started laughing.
Well, I mean, it was accurate, right? At the time, I could actually mentally remember my thought process, and I'm like, I could say I'm not afraid of this because I'm not. Fuck, I can't encourage them to bring the supers down right now. We're not ready for that shit. And it was just the way it was.
But that left the other card to play for PL, right? Because this was a dread bomb, huge, but a dread bomb. It didn't have any of their Titans or super carriers with it, and a few weeks later, I think they brought them down. Right?
Oh no, they didn't bring their Titan Supers down for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, it was months away from that, but yeah, it was a very significant fight, at least as well from my perspective.
Mhm.
It definitely gave Tess a lot of confidence. Like Willie already had the confidence, and I think Proga does too, because they're both, they've been around a while. But for the Test line members, I think it was very important to see that they can pull that off, and that would just gain them such a huge big bump in PR as well. Obviously I don't know what the recruitment numbers are like, but I'm assuming fights like that always are great for your recruitment, because people are like, oh, we can join this alliance that just beat PL and NC Dot, right? So it was huge for the line members, gave them all a lot of confidence, and it like Willie said, really showcased, hey, Shield Supers aren't as shit as people make them out to be, apparently.
Yeah, and right after that fight, our Shield Titan production just spiked through the roof in Asseteria, right? Because all of a sudden people have the confidence to believe what we've been saying is actually true. You will survive under reps. It doesn't have to be Armor Titans you're using in a Super Cap fleet. As long as your Super Cap fleet is properly built, you will still do fine, right?
Also very important that they see that there's activity for them, right? That's always the problem. That has always been the problem for us, Super Cap wise, because we're always
exactly
a little bit on our own, not entirely. In Fountain, for sure, we're not entirely on our own. If there's like a massive fight kicking off, we would get help fairly quickly. But if you operate a little bit outside, it's hard to get the activity up without risking too much. And
well, it's actually kind of funny, because
especially
early in that year, we were probably the most active Super Cap alliance in the game. We had a Super Cap fight against PL and NC in like Head GP, I believe it was, but like a smaller scale, like 50 to 100 dreads, and then we had a small Super Cap fight against, I think it was Red Alliance in Lower Stain, and then we had DTAC G fight. Like, we were just like, our supers and stuff were just going nonstop kind of thing.
CO2, the Dread fucking massacre.
Oh, XWY. Yeah, that was the previous year in October, I believe it was.
No, yeah, October. Yeah, it would have been October.
Yeah, but we had just been going, like, our small Super Cap fleet had been going just constant, but we still kept hearing the ring of, like the thing Super Cap pilots always say, I never get used. We never get any opportunities to fight. It's like, we're doing more than any other lights in the game. Like, I can't do more here, guys. It's like, so it was just crucially, like, D-G was so important for us in terms of, like, changing the perception. And that was just monstrous.
That stuff was actually the reason why we were actually not a big fan of the first ref of 9-4. Because obviously we didn't know what the plans for Horde to move on and so on. And Horde was ramping up their supers and cap numbers in general. So we were very much looking forward to hunting their caps and supers with our caps and supers in Cloud Ring and maybe Fade and a little bit further. But and then suddenly Asher, I'm not actually sure who decided to do it, but I think it was Asher, decided to go for that 9-4 keep. So getting all that attention on our hunting area, and basically all our Super Cap activity plans went out the window, because you can't feel shit if there's like 2 full coalitions waiting to drop on you. And that was a little bit shit for us there.
Right. So another group at the same time that was attracting a lot of pilots that could use their supers was SkillU, and that was in the drone region area. Did you note how fast, or Killer B too, note how fast those guys grew with pilots that wanted to use their big ships?
Oh yeah, they went from starting with 3 Revenants when that we hired them to go and do Amencia, and then after the kerfuffle of who paid who and whatever passed, and they said no, we're just going to start killing bot renters. It ramped up quickly. They obviously couldn't build them very effectively, but they sure as hell could buy them. So when people started fire selling, and honestly, they were probably buying the supers that were docking up because they were afraid of getting dropped on by SkillU. So when that flip happened, cycle, isn't it? A little bit, right?
Yeah, like I don't want to use this ship because I'll get it killed, so I'll just sell it to the guy that's killing us with them.
Well, I mean, the people selling them didn't care because they were leaving, right?
Right.
If you can't rent your system, like, you're moving on. And if you're selling your super, you're probably not staying in drone lands if you're moving on. So
Yeah, there's no better possible environment to grow a supercap fleet than in the middle of someone else's renter grounds. Like it's so incredible. I remember I don't know, around this time, myself and Pro got in a conversation where we were talking about just how badly XIX and Solar were feeding. They were feeding a supercap kill a day on average. Like some days they would feed more. Like no matter what they did, every single day they would find a way to lose a super. And Skill Yourself would be killing the super. And there is nothing more encouraging to growth of a corporation or alliance than, hey, come on over to us. And who doesn't want to join and do that, right? Like it's impossible to not grow when you get that kind of free success.
They lived the dream in terms of as well. I think that was one of the last instances where an alliance or a group of maybe 100 people was fighting a blob of 500, 400, 300, however many people, and they were still winning just because how poorly organized the DCU and XIX were. At least that's what it looked like to me at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And inexperienced
You're not
FCs
wrong.
and all that, and they just kind of you just kind of schooled them on pretty much every single timer. And obviously that's a lot of fun. Like it is a shit ton of fun to just go around with 100 people and just play with a 300-man blob, picking them off left and right, and just even winning the objective at times. So yeah, it's great.
Well, and it was even a complete denial of the problem for months. Like by the time we were even in proximity to help in an organized way, we were already outnumbered in what we could effectively do in time. Because obviously, like you're spread out so badly as far as having Russians going deep. For us, U.S. time zone, and then the Euros not really being able to put anything very effective against Skill U, and then we're sitting there in U.S. where everyone was told to put timers at, and we're like, well, great. They have 50 Lokis and a super cap fleet. And if I ping for supers, my subcap number are going to be like, I have other things to do suddenly. And I could watch that happen literally every time.
The thing is, Skill Yourself is a really top tier group of players, and they were drawing from all the key groups.
Yep.
Triumvirate, they were drawing from PL, they were drawing from all of the elite groups, just because their content was so good. And I'm not going to say there isn't entities like that left, like XX and DCU, that are just that bad at the game, but they were pretty incredible at how bad they were in terms of organizing their defenses, and just everything they did was wrong, and everything they did made it easier for Skill Yourself and harder for themselves to do anything right. And by the time they actually were like, all right, we have to sit down and deal with this, it was too late. They couldn't even remotely come close to the super numbers they needed to handle them, which is hilarious considering the amount of space and rent regions and all that they had. But it's like, how do you deal with 50 Nixes and 25 Titans? Well, we need kind of at least something close to that. And they're like, we don't have it. I guess we lose. And 8 regions later, see you later.
Yeah, I think the turning point with Skill U was ironically the deployment to cache. Because literally everyone looked around and we saw the D scans come up from the move ops onto the fort. And we were like, where are the Russian supers?
Well, yeah, no. As much as people like to think that XX had some big super fleet, they didn't. They were like 30 supers, 10 Titans was like where they were like maxing out during like the CO2 war at times, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And,
So let me. So this is about May and June, right? When is it XIX?
This is March, April, May kind of.
March, April, May. Okay, so this is before XIX, the Drone Regions Authority, basically decides to fold and retreat into the south.
Yeah, well, in May they had the Battle of Sitak-Gel, which was their
Right.
evacuation operation, and before that, everything is just this slow decline, culmination, build up to the absolute failure of a move off of Sitak-Gel.
By the way, I was informed that move was going to happen in January. The consolidation of XIX and Innsmother was planned out in January and did not they didn't start moving towards legacy space until May, to give you like an indication of the transition period where they were almost in a weird holding pattern.
Well,
to the
in
point where they
February,
couldn't
you were
clear out.
winning, right? Like you cleared the Tri-Keep Star, things were going good. It's just
Yeah, but then
after what, February 8th, I think it was, there was just no opportunity. Like, you put the boot, the boot on the throat of Tri, and you're like, all right, we got this, boys. And then it's like,
yeah, they didn't clear
it's
out
like
Innsmother.
you were out of bullets or something. Like you just had no more energy to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think I underestimated how many people were kind of at the same spot I was when I said, all right, I'm done fighting this war and I'm leaving, because a lot of other people did too. And that's unfortunate. I feel kind of bad, but it's at the same time, it was just a culmination of a really long, laborious war that, again, yeah, you're completely right in the fact there was not a good amount of organization, top tier. And all levels down followed suit for that.
So, in broad terms, the XIX, who was the leader of the drone regions area, is making plans to retreat. They finally do was it, you say March or May, and get caught on what was the offer, Billy? Were you gonna let him sleep on the couch, kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, there's no downside to us having a friendly alliance or coalition sitting on your couch. It's just more bodies if you need them, and at the same time, it allows you to push your borders eastward with a friendly entity. So to us, it's a pretty win-win situation kind of thing.
Did that get you into hot water with like their enemies, Triumvirate and Winter Coalition?
Well, their enemies already hated us, and were already coming for us anyways.
Yeah, it really didn't make a difference. Like Tri was never going to side with Test, at least as far as I'm aware. So
yeah, which is why we had
didn't
always
really matter.
why we're so key about CO2 not joining in with Tri, like the year before, right? Like, these people are always going to side with PLNNC. You can't, go be friends with them versus us. And they're like, well, no, we can. And it's like, no, you can't. There's just certain people in this game that think a certain way. You can't just decide that you're going to be the one to change them. You're not a good-looking lady like that. It's,
Gigex. Yeah, not that good looking.
Yeah.
Gigex's wife. Not. Well, I better not finish that sentence. She probably is.
Yeah.
Really good looking. But all right. So they right.
Keep
So
your hands off her.
Yeah. So you guys end up seeing kind of the destruction of a move up, which we were talking about earlier, is just devastating because this wasn't a deployment where you take some of your ships forward and fight. This was like all your stuff because you're moving. And how bad was that damage?
Oh, we said it before the show. I think getting your move up gang is probably one of the worst things that can happen to your alliance, because usually the way alliance leaders try to spin their moves is you're never going to go like, no alliance leader is going to go and be like, yeah, we just got shit on, so we're going to move away. It's all kind of bad now. They're like, you will always try to spin it in some positive ways, like, oh yeah, this area held us back, now we're going to move into new shores and we'll have this great new fresh start or whatever. And you try to build up some sort of hype leading up to the move so that people are excited to move into the new area. They get excited for what's to come. And then on that move up that is supposed to start this new great adventure, you get destroyed. That is really, really bad for every alliance, because it crushes your morale of your line members. And it also, for a lot of these line members, they carry everything they own. They give it to their friend that has a Titan or something. They give all their belongings to friends that own some Titan supers. They pack some of their favorite ships in their own carrier and they move, and then that gets destroyed. And that is really bad. Some people cannot recover from that. There's obviously Alliance SRP. And some alliances, I don't know if XIX ever paid SRP to those people that lost their stuff there, but still, like, for some people, they just lose everything. And that is a really bad thing. I think the other day when Tri's move up got ganked, I think I saw a Hell kill mail that was like 44 billion ISK. And like the Hell itself was probably like 18 or 20 bill of that, right? So that dude had like 20, or even less. So that dude had like 25, 30 billion ISK off his personal assets, his ships, his stuff in that Hell, and it got killed. He lost like the majority of his assets there, and that's a huge blow to every alliance. So
Yeah.
that's something you absolutely want to avoid.
And in some cases, the monetary value isn't really reflecting the truth because it doesn't calculate BPOs and research time and that kind of stuff accurately.
Well, yeah,
Hafner?
there's BPOs, obviously. They're always going to be undervalued. But for the majority, the S value is correct, but it also removes the valuation of just how much extra value that stuff has when it's in 0-0 versus HiSec when you're talking about, moving, loads and freighter loads and freighter loads and freighter loads of stuff. You're looking at another 10, 20% value on top of that in most cases. And
That's a
on
very
top of that,
good one. Yeah.
it's all your stuff. There's no insurance, right? Like, it's just gone. Right? It's hard for people to realize what it's like to lose a 40 billion as super, and that's your ratting super, so you have no more way to make money quite the same. You're not getting reimbursed for it. You lost all your subcap ships. It's rough.
All right.
It's
So,
really telling how much better the alliance is that Killer Bee's been in, because literally every time we moved, the statement was, yeah, we kind of got shit on there, but we're going to go someplace else and see what we can do.
so they move, they get caught. Test does not help them out. That was kind of a big deal.
We
People
didn't?
were looking for you to, you didn't jump in to save them. And I think NC was kind of waiting to see what you were going to do, right?
So we lost about 300 to 400 capitals in that fight. We did not lose our super cap fleet because we never formed our super cap fleet until the fight was basically over. Which was
So the way people spin it was the way people like our side tried to spin it was like Tests abandoned, or Tappy abandoned their ally, and is this how you treat a new coalition mate or whatever? That's what we said on Reddit and shit. At the end of the day, Test did jump in with a lot of regular caps, and like Willie said, they just didn't have their supers moved in advance.
we were never going to be in position to use our super cap fleet there. We had no fax cover, and we had no fax
we were
cash
set
there.
up. Yeah.
It's like, let's go fight the entirety of the East, which was, Fraternity, Triumvirate, Skill Yourself, etc. Plus, Horde and NC would probably have been down if we had formed supers in some way or another. I know the NC Dread Bomb and Curse was, ready to go, I'm pretty sure.
I'm actually not sure. I know that I wasn't part of that fight. I'm pretty sure it was Judy and Travis who jumped us into that fight. But for some reason I wasn't around. I can't remember what. Maybe it was work or something else. I think it was work actually. I think I was working at the time, and then I basically checked my phone from work and I saw this massive thing going down. So yeah, both us as an NC Dot and Test were involved, and it was kind of big for us because NC Dot has always held back in the past before that to attack XIX directly. I've been trying to get us involved in killing XIX and some of the DCU a bit earlier than that, but it was ever like, yeah, we don't want to burn that bridge, yada yada, from certain people. So we never really got involved. But then when XIX sort of moved onto the couch with Test, there was a very great excuse for us to finally shoot them, because it was like, yeah, now they were going to go towards our enemy anyway, so we might as well shoot them, right? And that's when that happened. But yeah, like,
Yeah, they were your
I think-
ally. What? Why'd you?
I mean, that's up to the, like, there's people in EVE that are going to tell you, yes, XIX and the DCU, they were our ally, and we've been having deals with them for ages and ages. And then there's people like me, and at least as far, I don't know, maybe I've never moved to the highest pay grade within the North, although I'd like to think I did at some time anyways. But I've never really witnessed any sort of real alliance between us and them. It was always like I said, we never really wanted to aggress them because we figured when it comes down to the whole like huge war thing, they'd rather side with us than with the enemy, which would be the Imperium and Test at the time. But to me, that image was already shattered, because when we asked XIX to join into World War B, they didn't want to, because they were scared that we were going to fail and then goons were going to retaliate onto them. So to me, it was very obvious that XIX were never going to side with us anyways, because they don't want to put themselves in a position where they could, get aggressed after war by someone. So I never held on to that damage, but there were certainly people within the Northern leadership that didn't want to burn that bridge. So that never happened.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because XIX, who has traditionally been the leader of XX Coalition, had strong personal relationships with Vince, Tawny, and Elise, who are, NC, Goons, PL, the primary or older school leaders, I guess you could say. And Elise rather like blatantly kind of burned XIX over the course of this last little war in MTO, or I guess that would have been January or maybe December. I can't remember when MTO was. The Keepstar that was dropped in PL supported GOTG, but Elise really betrayed him, and that hurt him pretty bad there. And as Killa said, he didn't want to burn his relationship with Mittani by attacking World War B, and so the only relationship he had kind of left of those, I think, was Vince, and Vince was not like part of what we've seen over this year above everything has been kind of Vince's slow. How would I say, is releasing of control of the North, and the deterioration partly you've seen because of that. Vince is still there, he's still active to a degree, but it feels like he's had a much less active role in leading the North than traditionally, and you're seeing it in spades all over as the North had kind of relied on him to be the main point of leadership, for all of these different groups, and without that single cohesive kind of goals, it's definitely been a detriment to them, I felt.
Well, interestingly, this it's just I'm blown away, Killa B, because they didn't help you with World War B, then they're not really an ally. Therefore, they at some point can be targeted, and here's an opportunity because they're joining Test. So some NCFCs jump in and try to kill XIX. Basically, you guys just didn't want them as allies, or that's what it sounds like. Like they should be fair game. And I was looking at it thinking, well, maybe NC wants to get in on some of that skill U action, using.
No, I mean, obviously, the primary objective was to kill Tester. We never really wanted to hurt XIX in the first place, right? And we only jumped in because Test jumped in, so they were a primary target. And then once Test was dead, we just targeted the next neutral thing on grid, which was XIX. I mean, that's how you would probably spin it, but that's bullshit, right? So that's like. I just tell you every time I'm on the show, I say it every time because people like to, especially from within NC. People tell me, they poke me after the show and they like, hey, Killa, why do you say this stuff on TIS? That's not NC.'s official opinion. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not here to represent NC.'s official opinion. I'm here to represent my opinion. I'm going to tell you my opinion, and I don't care what NC. thinks about it, right? And that's the truth, what happened there.
Okay. So, and you're not going to attack Triumvirate, who's also there. So, because they're, I guess, an ally to NC. in the North.
I always liked CPA. I've never really had a relationship with Gars. Obviously, Tri at the time. At the time, I don't actually know who led Tri, but historically, since Tri has been sort of back, Tri has been led by CPA, which is Captain Patrick Archer and EOTZ, and then Garst and USTZ. Garst is quite known that he works at the military, so he's usually deployed for very long times, and then it's mostly up to Captain Patrick Archer. And I've always liked working with Archer. We've worked a lot together, even as early as World War B. I sometimes called them for help or something like that. They came up through wormholes. So I've always had a good relationship with them. So I was more inclined to work with them than XIX or Test.
All right. So moving on, the next big thing that happens, I believe, is Test decides they're going to challenge PL for Providence. What happened there, Billy?
All right, so we'd gotten lots of experience and practice with Endosis, and we saw Pandemic Legion holding 82 systems in Providence, every one of them with a station, I think. And we were like, we should take that fat cheddar. And we were like, every single system was ADM1 or ADM2, aside from like 3 of them in the HTP pocket or something like that.
Because it's just been burnt down by PL.
Well, no, they didn't. So itself, right? So we were like, this is gonna be easy, and we're like, all right. So we put out a pretty solid disinformation campaign about where we're going. We tried to hide it as much as we can. I think we took them by surprise a pretty decent bit, and we moved into ERVK in Providence. or maybe BRVK is in North Catch. I don't know, but it's basically jump range of all the relevant places in Providence. And we were like, all right, boys, go to town, move in. And we were planning on like Intosising, like we gave ourselves 3 weeks to do it all. I had wanted 2 weeks. Pro God was like 3 weeks. We played it on the safe side. We did 3 weeks. Before we even told people to go to Natosis things, like half of the region was reinforced. And we had basically the entirety of Providence taken within 6 days. There was 3 systems left, I think, within 6 days. And, obviously, Ragnar, who is the Intosis king of PL, was like, oh, you'll never be able to hold this. I'm going to make your life a living hell.
We'll get you.
Yeah, we'll get you. But, obviously that didn't really work. I put like 2,000 people in front of you. It's like, yeah, good luck, boys. So he does this 50-man gang camps. We start dropping them with Titans and just making it like Delve 2.0 kind of thing. And, all of a sudden it's not very fun. And, Providence falls pretty effectively and pretty quickly after that. So plus 82 free stations. Yay.
Jeez, yeah. Well, and when PL was fighting, there was a little Provi guy named Lumio that we featured on the show, and he would just fight with everything he had, and it was kind of a funny character. So when you guys were attacking, I think it was Brave was saying, for Lumio. So you guys were there to avenge this little guy that was standing up to PL.
Yeah, so Lumio is one of those like high elite PvP characters, like really insanely good at the game. And he was fighting PL with Tristans and trying to be the kind of Don Quixote of Providence and trying to resist the invasion. And, we saw the banner he had put down and we were like, this man knows what's up. And we tried to do our best to help him with his campaign against the evil aggressor.
And you did. You chased them out of town and you captured the whole region yourself. What did you give to anything?
6 stations.
Oh.
So I basically before we even invaded, our plan was basically, I think every alliance and legacy got 6 stations and Providence got 6 stations. I think Test took 7 maybe or something like that. Or no, actually I think it ended up everybody got 6 and we had like 2 or 3 like spares that we like planned on giving to people who lost them or whatever. So that was kind of how it went. It went well. It gave every legacy alliance an incentive to go do some Intosis work, gave Providence some incentive to work with us because they get to keep all the primary important stations they wanted, and it worked out great for everybody.
Yeah, and here's another reason the Test was selected in 2018 as most influential. You guys pretty much did this on your own, right? Or I should say legacy.
Yeah, it was Legacy Alliance and a little help from Provi, and that was how we rolled. I mean, we weren't dealing with anybody crazy. It was just PL without their supers and NC supporting them a little bit, and there's not a ton of realistic, like, PL without and NC without their supers, it's like 300-400 man fleet, and this is after they've lost their big Dread Bomb and DXG, so they don't even have great capital assets. NC's actually moved out to a degree at this point. Like, there just wasn't any real ability for them to resist at this point.
Yeah, NC is now busy in the north, I believe, helping to fight up there.
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, I believe you're right. They're in Cloud Ring trying to defend off the initiative and stuff and that kind of stuff.
That was during my first inactivity period of 2018, which was when basically I said earlier that GOTG and Horde had told us that they could handle the Goon 6 and ended up north on their own, which turned out to be untrue because they got reamed pretty hard almost on a daily basis trying to contest timers like little Astra houses or whatever in certain systems, especially in USTZ. They got destroyed pretty hard quite often. So we ended up deciding, focusing a bit more on that situation up there. We deployed our supers forward a bit towards Pureblind. I think we deployed them to OTEC Y at the time, and we have. I don't know if we actually moved into X47. Like I said, I wasn't really active at the time. That was when I got my new job, my full-time job, and I was basically phased out completely, just trying to, because that was the first time I actually worked in my life. Before that, I was like studying on a university and shit. So obviously, it took some time getting used to that. And yeah, that's what happened around that time, I think.
And I guess NC and Initiative have been enemies for a while, and they're fighting around this time too, if I'm not mistaken.
That was before my time as well. Like there was a lot of stuff going on between Init and NC before I joined NC. I remember I think there was a deployment by NC to Barliket or something back in, I don't know which year it was, 2017. I don't know. Bando, maybe you have a better recollection of that than I do.
Well, you deployed twice, right? The Fizzle War thing, the failed dread bomb in Harkonnen, basically bought us time to actually recapture all the progress NC made.
Yeah.
And then NC came back again. By the way, you lost stuff on the move up too.
Right, I remember. Yes, we did.
That was some good stuff too. Yeah, and then NC came back again, and then we changed up our tactics a little bit. I think a little bit too slow. If we would have come up with the Ravens right at start when NC came back, it would have been more effective. But yeah, that's where we developed actually the Ravens to deal with the super caps and our cap superiority from NC.
At the time, we were still outnumbering you in subcaps as well, right? Like NC at the time was forming more than Init.
Yeah, you know how it works, right? Like if you guys form, let's say, 150 subs, and we can form 150 subs, our subs are all going to be like, that's all we've got. Like, we can't field caps on top of it. But NC was always able to have that big cap wing in the back, so we had at all times. Yeah. It was tricky. It was a good learning experience. That's actually my dread alt. Top damage on that mail stream.
Top damage. All right, and so Test has captured Providence and reaped a huge benefit, but there was stations all over drone regions as well. I thought that was a big region that wasn't really talked about. Opner, who took all those stations?
A lot of them were held by NC through bot, and a lot of them ended up with Hard Knocks and Cobalt Edge. Volta took a bunch in the middle regions, and SkillU took a decent chunk of them as well. But overall, I think mostly they ended up just sort of being pieced out by people that did their thing. I'm pretty, all the NC ones got lifted as far as I know. I don't think any of or sold in place. So it was one of those things where a lot of people.
We scooped 110 faction forts when the swap happened.
It was kind of ridiculous watching my asset notifications, because all of my Sino tunes, I think I had Sinos and Liquido in every one of those stations, because I saw a notification on every single one of them as they were going away. But it was not a horrible transition for drones, I think. And I think the reason a lot of people didn't eye drones as far as like a money opportunity was because when you look at the map, like, yeah, there's a lot of stations and because there's a lot of systems, but wow, they are spread out. There was a ton of dead space. There's a lot of pipes that never really got good station traction. It's not like Providence where you have that density where you could literally like, oh, we're going to take a constellation and like it'll be a day's work, or a weekend's work to conquer this whole constellation. No, you were going to hate life for a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much a station in every system there in Providence. But what's funny is HK takes some of those faction Fortizars and they stash them away in their safe box, which is Fort Knox inside of the Rage system, which we get to later in the year. But yeah, so next comes an attack from Pandemic Legion on Test. I think the war begins that leads to the Battle of UALX, which is huge. So how did that actually start?
So it begins with a movement by Skill Yourself and Volta into Immensia, which is the first of the forces coming in on the east. They're followed shortly by Fraternity, Triumvirate, and Lumpy.
You're trailing off a little bit, by the way, the mic.
It starts with Skill Yourself and Volta, followed shortly by Triumvirate, followed by Lumpy, followed by Fraternity, and then shortly after followed by Pandemic Legion with their super fleet. And at this point, the war for Immensia is kind of on. Test immediately redeploys to Delta Yankee Tech Papa, and we see a lot of kind of skirmishing going on. Nobody's really sure how they want to play out the war. Triumvirate makes some aggressive plays early, but they get a little bit punished or they ran off pretty effectively. And there's just a lot of lack of cohesion in the groups that are working against us. Skill Yourself seems to be actually the most effective and aggressive of those groups. They make a play in YTAC J. We eventually managed to put that down, though we feed a whole bunch of stuff to prevent them from getting a Fortizar online there. But that's part of the UALX situation. As we had a spy in Skill Yourself at the time, we knew they were planning on redeploying to YTAC J, which would put them kind of behind our lines, I guess you could say, which is something we really considered as kind of like a death point or a situation where it would be unrecoverable from. So 3 days later, we deployed the UALX Keepstar, or UALX Keepstar number 1, I guess, and the Battle of UALX begins. Part of what made that available is we were planning to build our whole Keepstar chain from Esoteria to Catch. So we had a multitude of Keepstars that we had been building to try and properly set up that highway. And so we had, 2 Keepstars ready to go. And that's partly what made ULX 1 and 2 workable. So UX, we drop it. We set timing for US time zone. We knew we would be able to probably take a fight in US time zone. And we call in the Goon Shield Super Fleet, which wasn't that big at the time. I mean, it was only 40 Titans, which was a 40% increase on our Titan numbers, which was relatively important. And then, the fight happens as it goes. It's PL and NC, I think, or PL and NC. I'm so used to saying PL and NC. But PL and the Eastern Bloc commit at range to the Keepstar as it's anchoring. They just don't put any effort into thinking about how they're positioning. And it's probably the biggest tactical error of the battle, as it allows the in-tether range of their Doomsday range. So only about half of their Titans are actually able to offensively use their Doomsdays. We jump in with our Titans in tether range, and about 90% of our Titans are in Doomsday range. So our 140 versus their 160 to 180 in reality becomes 120 of us versus 90 of them kind of thing. So it gives us a tactical advantage. We're also in tether range, which is a pretty massive advantage when you're on these kind of fights. And so any of our disconnects are just tethered there, and theirs are sitting in the middle of a blob disconnected. As we jump in, we use properly set up Doomsday groups, and we insta-Doomsday 2 Erebuses. Their counter Doomsday wave doesn't come in for 10 minutes, and it's kind of a failure wave, I think, or something like that. It doesn't happen anyways.
Was that the tether bug or exploit or whatever you want to call it? You know what I mean?
Nobody realized there was a tether bug or exploit during that fight. It's possible it was, but there wasn't Doomsday's fight. Yeah, it might be. Anyways, the fight goes on. We end up trading about 10 Titans for 4 Titans. We fail a Doomsday Wave or 2. They fail a Doomsday Wave or 2. It's just really hard when the lag is that heavy. You have to perfectly sync all of your Doomsdays within a matter of seconds, right? And it's just very, very difficult. We're utilizing our massive dread cache we had in DY TAC, which I think was 800 dreads at the time. So we're just throwing in waves of 200 or 300 dreads at a time. Another wave, another wave, another wave. And obviously they're just not able to cope with that. Although even if the dreads are dying in the center of their Titan blob, basically unsupported, we're making progress against their faxes. And, Triumvirate was down to, I think, 8 faxes at the time when the node crashed, and we were just about to start chewing through the first of their rags, I think. And we had Doomsday Wave in on PL Titan. There was literally about 4 northeastern Titans that were about to die within 10 minutes of real time right before the node crashed, which was unfortunate. But the node crashes.
Moloch, right?
What, sorry?
Including a Moloch. I think the Goon Titans, when they jumped in, they spooled all their DDs on one of the Molochs. And,
no. They wanted to shoot a Moloch. And
okay.
I kept telling them, fuck off.
And then the node died.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting the node to just die, right? CCP's been really good about, not letting the nodes die in these kind of fights. It becomes a laggy mess, right? But, you're going till downtime. It was the expectation you have to kind of run with. Because if you're like, oh, the node's just going to die, then, what are you doing? So the the choice is made. We keep fighting, and then the node crashes. And at that time, we're at 9 or 10 Titans to 4. We've got a massive supply of dreads ready to go. We knew we were true and through well on faxes. The enemy groups to us, so the northeastern forces, had jumped all their dreads in at 0 on their own Titans in a defensive situation, so we had no dread bomb risk at all. So we knew we were going to maintain absolute range control. It was like basically our enemies like in a ball, right? Like they were like just huddled, in a defensive safety ball, and we're at range, able to just like continue to pound into them, right? Like you couldn't ask for a better possible situation. And then the node crashes, and we're like, well, fuck, let's keep going. And obviously they're in a situation like, we've had enough of this. And, there was information, that they had that they thought the node wasn't going to come back anytime soon. In fact,
Where would they've gotten that idea?
Yeah, who knows? But anyways, the node comes back up in an hour. We all spam log back in. One Blades of Grass Titan logs back in with us and instantly dies. But otherwise,
okay.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Well, that was like an 8-hour fight. Yeah.
Well,
No, I
we were
wasn't there for that,
raiding-
so I can tell you the whole. I can do it short from the northern perspective. Basic NC Dot wasn't really like we relied on. Obviously, NC Dot Superfleet wasn't south at that point, but PL's was. PL had deployed their super south at that point, and we were sort of sitting. We knew that fight was going to happen. We were planning on bringing subcap fleets down. We were forming up the subcap fleet at something like 1 a.m. my time or midnight my time, and I was just supposed to be helping out with the subcap fleet. During the form up of the subcap fleet, I fell asleep. And I fell asleep with my headset on because I basically just kind of fell asleep in my chair with my headset on. And then when I woke back up like 1.5 hours later, I hear us, like our FCs, I hear them like coordinating our super fleet through the middle of drone lands. I'm like, wait, what just happened within the last 1.5 hours that we're now moving our super fleet from Tribute trying to get down to that fight, right? And basically Goons started moving their super fleet from Delph, and then that prompted us to Imperium and Legacy had some dictators set up along the way, so they slowed us down quite a bit. We did the same with the Goon Superfleet. Very important to say that the Goon Superfleet at the time, or some of it, was staged in fucking somewhere in the north already. So it was quite a long way for them as well. We slowed them down a bit too. But yeah, basically, as we were arriving in the last midpoint with the majority of our super fleet ready to jump into the system, we signed a dread bomb and the node crashed. Basically, that's what happened. So we didn't actually jump our super fleet in. We were about to, and then the node died. And the fleet was kind of dumped on me because the Travis, I think, who was leading it, had to go to work, and Judy was running the subcaps in the system. So I was just dumped with the super fleet. It was like, yeah, Killa, I gotta go to work. You do what you deal our super fleet now. And I was like, nah, fuck this. I don't want to go in there. It's like 4 a.m. my time. So I started moving us back pretty much as soon as the note that I was like, there's no way we're gonna lock back in anyways. Like day one, this fight, we're not gonna lock back in. So I just started moving us back home. Obviously, I got a little slap by CCP Falcon for what I said there, but it's all worked out now. Yes, 6 RCQ. Thank you, Razor 1590 in Twitch chat. Exactly.
That's where the Goonswarm Armor Titans were headed south. The Shield Titans were already in play, but the actual Armor Titans, all of them up in the north, were headed south. And we did not believe that was good intelligence until after we saw them move a jump or two. We thought it was a bluff, but remember, tie-dye had just, not tie-dye, the fatigue had just changed. It had been lessened quite a bit.
Yeah, it basically allows you to move around quite freely. Like even if you cap out fatigue now, you can jump every 30 minutes, which in a fight like UALX is nothing because the fight, like Willie said, everybody kind of suspects the fight to go until downtime. So you can make a jump every 30 minutes. You're still going to arrive with quite some time left.
And
I want to point out, go on,
sorry.
sorry.
Killa first and then.
Okay. I just want to, maybe this is a bit like jumping the gun, but I just want to say, like, in terms of the strategy of the whole war shaping out, including the Goons' aggression up north, UALX was probably the most important fight of them all, even more important than X47, because the entire northern strategy, the entire, like, strategy that we've come up with, basically, with the Northern leadership was we stall goons up north as long as we can while you guys make as much progress down south as you can. Ideally, kill quote unquote Test. Obviously, you can't really kill Alliance, but push Test back by quite a bit, make them lose a bunch of their shit. That was the whole strategy we had. But after UALX, the whole southern thing was over. Everybody just gave up. Like, Skill, you realized how hard it is to fight in a real war, not just farm renters. And they kind of just were like, "No, our members don't like this. We don't really want to do this stuff anymore. Like nothing like UALX. We're not gonna put our members into a situation like UALX again, which is sometimes what you have to put your members in to win a war like that." And Skill, you basically said, "We're not gonna do that stuff anymore." So the whole southern thing was over. So the entire strategy that the North kind of relied on, it was done. Like the whole, like, we stall in the North as long, like the idea was NC dot, GOTG, and CO2. We try to stall in the North as long as we can, while FRT, Try, Lumpy, Skill U, PL make lots of progress down south. But that was done. The whole idea of them making any progress south was over. So at that point, we were left sitting in the North, like, okay, so what are we going to do? Fight goons forever? And that kind of led up into what happened after.
I think I agree, actually. I mean, X47 was very important too. But, they're probably kind of close to each other, but both sides learned a lot from UEL and UAL. And
I think
also,
UALX. I think. Can I just say one thing? I think UALX was a key point in that. From that point on, there was no way that the Imperial Legacy was going to lose the war, but the war was not decided that Imp Legacy was going to win the war. If that kind of makes sense.
I'm not sure if that I would agree to that. I mean, there was still a big chance that Imperial Legacy could lose, but the important part was also our strategy was the exact mirror of the North, right? We were deployed to 6RC not to crush everyone, but to force NC dots to keep their supers around there. If we wouldn't have deployed to 6RC, you guys could have moved your supers down south freely. And
100%.
then Test would have been in real trouble. And what's after Test, right? So it wasn't the plan to crush the entire North when we deployed to 6RC. It was more like let's deploy, force them to stick around. And you guys had the same idea, actually, to keep us to stick around, but we kind of played into each other's strategy a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, you just executed it better at the end of the day. Also, some people said shots fired. I don't think that's shots fired. Like at the end, regarding what I said about Skill U not wanting to put their members into a position like that, I think at the end of the day, every alliance decides which way they want to play the game. Some of us like to fight in big wars, and some of us like to play, I guess you want to call it guerrilla style stuff, right?
Exactly.
And that's what Skill U thrives at. That's what Skill U is good at. They are really good at this guerrilla type warfare. They're really good at sort of being super annoying and grabbing every kill of opportunity they can get. Skill U was formed of people who were alliances like Pizza. If some of the people in Twitch chat maybe remember them, they were very, very known type fighter. So I don't blame them for not liking sitting 10 hours in tie-dye and basically achieving nothing, right? Like it's not something that's bad. It's just basically they realized in that fight, this is Eve if you want to fight a huge war like this. I don't want to say there's no way, but it's very hard to play Skill U's play style, invade somebody like Test at the same time. So that just didn't.
And a big component of the ULX stuff that we're not talking about, was the second Keepster drop in the Hell Camp. I think that did more to crush the offensive momentum than any of the components of the battle. We were still quite outnumbered in both supers and
for sure.
Is the stream laggy or something wrong with my mic? Am I laggy?
I hear you fine.
Somebody in Twitch chat said my mic's weird when I spoke.
Might be my microphone. It's not
I think
great.
It's Villy's.
All laggy? Okay, Viking one is saying it's all laggy. Okay. the stream is like, okay, there you go.
TIS is gonna buy you a new mic gear, Philly.
Yeah. Anyways, so like once you start getting hell camped for multiple days, and there's now a new Keepstar on grid that you just killed, which was your big victory of the fight, right? It really like hits home on how these wars are like truly, I don't want to say fought, but like it's incredibly demoralizing, and it's like, oh god, this is not about fun. This is about like brutal savagery, and like nobody wants to, especially if you're a small gang player and you don't traditionally fight in those kind of battles. That's not fun. Like
Exactly.
it was hard on us, and I can only imagine how hard it would be on the people trying to make offensive progress in that situation.
It's all sustained force, right? And it's vastly easier to have that sustained force when you have lots of reinforcements, right? Like a group like Legacy can bring, a couple hours from dudes every day is enough to hell camp a system completely. Whereas from a group like NC or PL, that would be literally all of us having to do nothing but sit on Eve. Like one of these is feasible, the other is not.
I think that hell camp situation could have actually been their opportunity there, because it would go back to more of a smaller scale fight on a daily basis. You know what I mean? But now imagine after that fight, I bet everywhere in every alliance, or not in every in the alliances, but like Skill U and so on, there was the mentality going on, and fuck tie-dye, never tie-dye fights again kind of stuff, and as some people already like McCannis used to say, the worst thing about tie-dye fights is the people complaining about the tie-dye fights. And I think that's very true right there. And then this new Keepstar goes up, and that's not one fight that you have to do once. No, you have to do it 3 times, and that's not going to be good for morale. Then your stuff is trapped, yes, but it could be an opportunity too. But doing that grind 3 more times, I think that's probably where most of their dudes say, like, fuck it, it's not worth it.
So
I want to point out that Try was in an even bigger, even more of a predicament than anyone else. Because for PL, and I think Skill U, they actually extracted their subs, whereas Try had, because they had subcap fleets or something. Whereas Try had all their mains in Fax and Carrier, so Try was actually unable to play for the duration of the hell camp until their shit was moved out, because they had all their characters stuck on that grid. Like it wasn't even like, for example, PL, they just they had their supers and titans logged off on their grid, which is usually on separate characters, and they were still able to do stuff with their main characters. But Try wasn't. Try was completely basically denied playing the game for the duration of the hell camp. So that was even worse for them than for the other alliances.
So big picture, you have PL and Try and Skill U and other groups, Winter Coalition as well. They actually they get the objective. They destroy the forward operating base that Test had put down. But 2 days later, Test puts down a second one, while all those guys are still trapped inside the system, not able to play. So that was it was almost like this. There was the battle, and then there was the post-battle that was almost as important.
Yeah, so we anchored a Fortizar on grid that morning, so within 6 hours of the fight, so 24 hours later. And then I think that night we anchored the Keepstar. And the Keepstar was, 12 or 1300 kilometers off, with an insta undock directly into what we're going to call like the death zone of where everybody was logged off. And it basically created a situation where we could basically sit our Titan and Supers on that Fortizar in direct range of where everything they have logs in, tethered, right? So it's just like, as bad a situation as they were in when the fight ended, it only got worse and worse and worse. And it took them, we only held camp for 5 days, but it took them 2, 3, 4 weeks to get all of their shit out. And they had to log in and suicide multiple fleets and multiple everything day after day after day. And it was just this is so terrible. There's just no possible offensive momentum left after that kind of a situation.
Yeah, obviously it's always tricky whenever you feel like an entire alliance or whatever, it's a hyped up fleet, you get maximum numbers. It's very hard to get the same dudes on again at the same time again on another day. So you will always have like people left there trapped, obviously. Right, so it's a really tricky situation.
Okay, so, and this is funny because this is all happening at summer, which is usually a very calm time for Eve because they say the sun comes out and people go outside and play, and but not
year
this summer.
wasn't.
There was, yeah, maybe the summer was wrong, but this year was definitely conflict all through the summer, and we'll just move forward into August, September area, and this is when. I don't know, maybe Pando or Killabee can set us up. How did the North intensify into a full-blown Keepstar after Keepstar fight?
Well, pretty straightforward, right? Like I just said, the Southern offensive was over. There was no reason for neither Test nor Goons to keep any major forces down south at this point because Test could pretty much handle whatever was left on her own. If there was anything left, I don't even know if anything happened after that. But and then Goons were able to focus fully on the north, together with with all their allies in pretty much all alliances. So they deployed pretty much the entirety of the Imperium, including Snuff at the time, to 6RCQ, which was their cloudering staging, and they were just putting pressure on us on a daily basis. And they were now basically the way it worked was that we were in a huge disadvantage of being a sort of patchwork coalition, right? The whole idea of the North was to form a counterpart to the Imperium, and and this is where I really start, like, my own personal opinion is going to start to be a lot like, I disagree with a lot of decisions that were made around this time, and I can't really blame the people making the decisions because I was not very active in terms of leading the coalition's defense at the time. I was FCing the big fights, the X-47 fights I did FC, and then both some of the bigger subcap battles, but a lot of the strategic decisions were made by the people, and a lot of people we ended up working with were either very inexperienced or very hard to work with. So it was difficult at times to get the objectives done or to, make a unified stand. Whereas the Imperium, they have practiced the coordination for basically 2 years, especially within Goon Swarm. They can field massive numbers and they have the whole, 1,000 people on Mumble thing, whereas we have, we have like 200 people on 5 different mumbles, and we coordinate through Discord. We were just a lot worse at coordination than the Imperium was, and I think that's effectively what made us lose at the end of the day.
I have to give a lot of credit to Asher for that, because he, we had some coordination issues too, like you always have with big groups and several smaller groups too. Snuff, for example, is using their own comms. We are using our own comms. Then we have some other dudes like Septicemia, like the luck guys and so on, like smaller groups that are always doing their own thing, kind of. So you always have some coordination issues, and it can get a little bit stressy. But even if things got a little bit wild, Asher always chilled out and had everything under control basically, and there was no ego clashing. You know what I mean? You know how FC teams work. You always have some people who just wanna be the number one or whatever, but we didn't have that, so it was a good coordination and good good teamwork.
There were a couple of nice fights I want to highlight outside of the big fights that everybody sort of knows about. There were a couple. There was actually like a small period of time up north where before all the Keepstar killing started happening, where we had a lot of very fun small skirmishes on a day-to-day basis. It was basically just Kendar with SV going out shooting something, like shooting a CO2 fort or something, and then I would form up and we would go fight him. And there were a couple of really nice small skirmishes there that were without a lot of tie-dye. It was like 150 versus 150 sort of thing, at least initially. Of course, as soon as the fighting started, then Goons proper would form up and a lot of our allies would form up, and then it turned into a huge blob. By that time, the fight was usually over though, and we both just extracted and went home. So there was a nice little period there where a lot of smaller skirmishes happened, which was really great. And then after that, it kind of shifted to the whole Sino jammer killing, which was the main thing we relied on at that point. Our defense strategy was basically, as long as the systems are jammed, we can hold them. But then Goons made some major progress. I think it was during the CSM summit, actually. I was gone for the CSM summit, and during the summit, a lot of major iHubs were lost, and that sort of broke the defensive fade, because all those iHubs were gone. We weren't able to jam those key staging or Keepstar systems anymore, and then Goons kind of just rolled over them after that. So yeah, that happened.
Well, in the meantime, they were sweeping under and taking out Keepstars that were, in their view, friendly to the north. So they took out, I think it was, what was it called? Kanaka's Snigwaff, I think, or Waffles had one in Kanaka that was destroyed. This is Keepstars, and you had a Shadow Cartel in Asuki that was destroyed, and then they attacked the my Keepstar in Oninen, and I think I know they were gonna attack the one in Mela while they were waiting to kind of break down these iHubs and then go, resume the attack on the north. At the time, actually, I was told that we were going to take these. I actually negotiated some diplomatic surrender, and was able to extract at least the Onin and Keepstar. But I was told that they were going to take the next 4 weeks to destroy those two, and then come back to the north and do a bit more. And then I think they wanted to kill CO2, and then they were going to just take a break. So they did say that in advance. But that kind of leads to what happened to stop the war in the north. Maybe we should hold off on that for just a second and talk about the big battles that did happen. There were several, right? But the biggest one is probably X-47, LTAQ.
Yes.
What happened there?
Well, the first X-47 fight I thought was actually kind of cool. Well, I mean, as cool as a fight like that can be. We did really well at the start, and then as we shifted out of EUTZ, went into USTZ, I think I made the call too late to stop the fight and sort of extract. But even if I made the call late, I think extraction in a fight like that is always going to be dirty. But basically, we jumped in initially. We traded Titans very effectively. I think the first couple hours of the fight, we actually traded Titans 2 or 3 to 1. So we were ahead by quite a bit. But then, basically, our USTZ is a lot weaker than the Imperium's and Tests is, of course. And basically, as people from our UTZ unfortunately started logging off, I can't really blame them. They have jobs, they have families and stuff. The Goons, the Imperium, they kept reinforcing. So we were just starting to lose the battle because we were running out of people while they kept bringing more and more people in. And basically I made the call too late to de-aggress and jump out. So by the time the whole fight was over, the first X-47 timer, we had lost, I think, by... I don't know the exact numbers, I'm sorry, but if anyone has them by any chance, we lost by a bunch of Titans. We were down a bunch of Titans. I think we killed how many did we kill? 26, 27, and we lost 35 or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was...
I'm actually not sure about the numbers, but so the main reason what I think is why you guys traded, especially at the beginning, was that fucking tether bug again. We knew about it kind of, but we... we had to adjust in the fight itself, and that's another thing. Where coordination is very important, obviously, to realize what's actually happening. That was kind of confusing. I wasn't too aware of that bug, to be honest. And then, so for those who might not know what the tether bug is, so basically what happens is those Titans are they're just shooting each other only with doomsdays, right? The thing is, though, if you finish the target of your doomsday, then you can instantly tether again, which means in turn the other side can't doomsday that Titan, or the Titan can decide if he wants to tether up, basically losing all locks, and you can just tether up and you're safe, wasting a lot of our doomsdays at the beginning. That's what saved a lot of Titans. What's important, though, is I'm not sure actually we did that on the first timer only Dark Shines jumped in with the Honey Monster with that Moloch being super hardcore EM thermal tanked, because I kept telling him, like, come on, you have like, I don't even know, I think it was 230 million EHP on EM thermal. They're never going to doomsday you off the field. You can waste so much DPS. But you guys never called him primary. Lucky for you guys, I guess. But instead, you went for, I think you didn't even try to hit any of our Titans, but you went for Goon Titans, Erebos,
Yeah,
obviously.
Goon buses. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, on the second timer, we actually adjusted, and I pushed hard for the EM thermal refit, and we actually refitted all our Titans from Init, and Goons went halfway on the Ereboses only. So you guys were still able to kill the Goon Ereboses because it wasn't both hardness refitted. But at least you primaried a couple of hours, which then helped us against that tether bug. Because if the target doesn't die, you can't tether. You're stuck for like the full duration of the Doomsday. So that enabled us on the second timer at least to have a more consistent killing speed, and we were more prepped for that too. And yeah, but the adjustment on the go on the first timer was really good. So coordination.
I also tried something new. I wanted to try it in the first X47 fight. I wanted to try capital hull energizers on the DDs, which on paper I thought was like a great idea, because you get DD volleyed and you cycle your hull energizer and then you tank the DD volley, which is massive if you being primary, even if it only works on half the Titans being DD volleyed, right? Even if it works on only a third, you still manage to basically waste a full DD volley of something. But that didn't work at all. Because in tie-dye, the cycling and the timing of the hull energizers was just weird. So the hull energizers were incredibly ineffective. The tether bug did work in our advantage quite a bit, and we were able to kill a lot of supers and Titans that jumped out of X47 back into the midpoint that Goons used, which was in Pure Blind. We had PL and some other alliances set up over there with dread bombs and probers to basically kill stuff that jumped back into their midpoint and then disconnected over there, which is also and we also had some hunting squads set up in X47 itself to go hunt disconnected stuff. We also killed a Moloch that was on a disconnect. Very unfortunate for the dude who lost a Moloch, because that's a shitty way to go down.
That's the first one that's been destroying the game.
Yeah, but basically we managed to win score-wise. I think we were like almost $1 trillion ahead after the whole first X47 fight was over, but that was only because of the kills we scored in the midpoint, plus some of the disconnect kills we managed to score. So, and obviously strategically we lost the objective, which is at that kind of scale is really the only thing that matters. So the ISK positivity wasn't really, at least on an FC level, we didn't really care too much about that. It was something to show our line members, I guess, but we were still like, I was not happy with the result of that fight. And then the second X47 fight, which is obviously the final timer for our staging Keepstar. In hindsight, now I know it was just dumb for us to engage there at all. Like, and even though the obviously the whole propaganda and everything, it would have blown up pretty hard in our face, but it did anyways. I think the smarter call would have been to just not go in there at all, because on that one we just got completely destroyed. Like the second X47 fight, our coordination was even worse than the first one. We have like, and they're probably the same for Goons, but the server performance was awful. Like I think we jumped in initially with like 400 Titans, and the first time I asked for Titan pilots that were able to lock the target that I broadcasted and shit to X up and fleet, I got like 40-50 access or something. So it was like 3/4 of a Titans were, and we just got completely destroyed in the second X47 fight. It was an incredibly frustrating experience, and this is probably one of the main reasons. And all the haters in Twitch chat are going to love this one. But that was one of the bigger reasons I decided to take a longer break from EVE. It wasn't the fact that we lost the fight itself. It was just the realization for me that, because that's sort of what I've always worked towards. I always wanted to be a part of those fights. I think, to me, and I know lots of other people think differently, but to me, that's EVE endgame. To me, the huge fights like this, these fights that decide over the fate of alliances, over the fate of space, that's EVE endgame for me. And I kind of realized that endgame isn't really playable on a meaningful level, because instead of having to plan just versus my opponent, I also have to plan versus the servers, which is something that is completely random. Sometimes the servers work fine, sometimes they don't work at all, sometimes module A doesn't work, sometimes module B doesn't work. It's something that's incredibly inconsistent. I was like, okay, so this is the end game I want to play, but I can't really reliably play it because the servers can't handle it, or the game's just a little bit off. So that's why I've been thinking about what I really want to do in EVE now over the last couple of months, and which is why I took my most recent break. But yeah, that's like what X47 was for me. I still want to give Matt, like, it's not, I don't want to say we lost because of the service. That's not what I'm saying, by the way. We definitely lost because goons were better. The coordination of the Imperium was a lot better than ours. And they've taken all they've learned from the first X47 fight and have translated that into immediate action in the second fight within just a week, basically, right? They did a very, very good job at adapting to the first fight, and they've translated that into, just winning straight up in the second.
What's also important, again, in that fight, or in any big fights like that, it's not necessarily that like so many Titans die, but it's always that confidence in your super cap numbers. Your super cap guys need to be confident in the FC or in the numbers too. That's exactly what you said. Then suddenly you're trying to have people X up, and you only get like a quarter or whatever of what you would usually get. And that's what's losing the conflict, like in the end. Like that's what's causing it, basically, right?
Yeah. So, Abyssal Space, by the way, Kilby, we'll talk after the show. Okay, so that really was the staging ground for NC. Which is basically the backbone of the Northern Resistance at this point. And that really starts a cascade of keep stars falling. I think as many as 5 fell in one day, which was like the setup. It was something set up that way. So what was the vibe in the North when really the Imperium and Legacy or Imperial Legacy was just rampaging through Fade and Pureblind?
It's Tapirium now, by the way, according to my latest info. That's what it's called, Tapirium.
Basically, Goonswarm and Test are rampaging the North. What's NC feeling, or what's the North feeling?
Man, people must be tired of my voice at this point.
But what was the strategy? What was the outlook? What were they like? Oh my God, we're gonna get rolled.
Let me guess then.
Yeah, you go.
So I guess the main concern was probably like how far, how long would Tapirium push?
We had some talks with Aerith at the CSM summit, so I wasn't really worried of them pushing too far, to put it that way.
God damn it.
But
diplomacy, huh?
Ugh.
Go on.
But yeah, obviously it was a thought at the start. No, so I mean, at the end of the day, like Jay said this earlier on Twitch. I don't know if Jay's still here. I love you, by the way. I think everybody does. Gay for Jay.
Jay amazingness.
Yeah. So Jay said this earlier. This nice period of subcap skirmishes I talked about earlier, it happened after the X47 fight, but before the DO6 fight, right? So X47 was when we realized, okay, in X47 we threw everything we had, quote unquote, everything we had. There's some voices that say that there were some certain alliances in the North that could have contributed more to the fight, but I don't think that's realistic. Basically, we threw everything we had as the United North into X47. We lost. So for me, at that point, it was very clear there was not a real way for us to stop them from killing the Keep Stars. The only thing keeping them from it at the time was those iHubs that were at the time still running. The only reason they went for X47 first was because we weren't able to online a Sino jammer in X47 because there were some mistakes that were made, and we only held this off for, I don't know, not enough time anyways. And we had just lost the we sort of knew, okay, so as soon as we lose the Sinojammer in the system, there was no way we're going to stop them from killing the Keepstar. So we tried to stop them from killing the Sinojammers as long as possible. And we've had some great fights over those. Some of them were fun. Some of them crashed the node. It was really great when Progress was doing a huge Goku fleet and GOTG warped into them at 0. Goku's threw their bombs, and I think it was like 250 battleships exploding, and it just crashed the node. That was an interesting day.
Yeah, from our perspective, it was super interesting after X47 to see NC Dot work without supercap support, because obviously you guys are used to having that supercap backup ready to go, but you couldn't use that now, and it was all subcaps, right? So it was a very different situation suddenly.
There was a fight that there was a fight over the DO6 iHub that was right before or right after the CSM summit. I can't remember, but it was one of the fights that I actually have seen. It was over the DO6 iHub, and going straight into the fight, I told all the other FCs on the Coalition Discord, all the GOTG FCs and all the CO2 FCs, and I told them, hey guys, my suggestion for this fight is not to try to defend the iHub, because I don't think that's going to happen, because I've been very frustrated with their ability to defend their iHubs. So I just told them, I'm not going to really try here. I'm just going to see if I can get kills. And we ended up sort of zooming around with our Munin fleet and just kind of engaging parts of the Imperium fleets. Imperium had multiple fleets in the area. I think Init was in Munins as well. You guys were in
We
Munins?
had Munins, and that's also where we started using Stukas way more. We started when we deployed originally to 6SE.
Yeah.
Stukas
So
used bombers.
we were like having a little skirmish with the Init Munins, and then whenever the main blob of the goons would arrive, like their Mega fleet and their Ferox fleet and all those fleets would arrive, we would just warp off and engage a smaller Imperium fleet in another system. That's how I just kind of went around the constellation, engaging the fleets I was able to engage, and then whenever the main goon blob arrived, I would basically disengage and pull off and go somewhere else, go engage another fleet somewhere else. And at least for me and for the people in my fleet, that was very fun. You guys, we guys had a good fleet. Obviously, we lost the strategic objective, and goons accomplished theirs. But yeah, I think that we made the best out of the situation we could, basically. So, in terms of NC Dot, like I said, we weren't really worried that goons were going to push for tribute next because of agreements that were made. But it was still, to me, it was obviously the realization that the whole project of the North, which was kind of like a bit my baby, I kind of wanted to build that coalition ever since 2016. I kind of realized, okay, this project has kind of failed. We've tried to build this coalition up, and now we've tried our best to defend in key fights, and it didn't work out. So that's kind of when my personal mindset shifted from the whole North as a coalition towards how can we just be better at NC Dot. I kind of wanted to stop focusing on all the alliances in the North. I wanted to put all my effort and all my focus into the alliance itself instead of the allies that we helped out. So
X47 then kind of signals really the breakup
of the end.
of the North. And that North is the group, it's the remnants of the Money Badgers that had come in and really kicked Goonswarm and the Imperium out of the North.
Pretty much was the leftover.
That's where the dream began for you, and then this is kind of like, okay, I'm going to refocus.
Yeah, I had a very big coalition mindset. My whole mind was focused on the entire coalition instead of just NC Dot. So we made some decisions, and I can blame myself for that as well. I've made some decisions when I was leading NC for a certain time period, at least military wise. Obviously, Vince has always been the leader. I made decisions that were good for the coalition, but bad for NC Dot as an alliance, and I now kind of regret that sometimes, because I think it would have been worth more to put more effort into NC instead of effort into the North. But I've realized that now, and I'm now gonna start working towards that, assuming I am allowed to do that. So, yeah.
Oh, all right. So X47 was significant, at least in your perspective.
Yeah.
So
very much.
at that point, you're talking to Aerith at the CSM summit, where these are the player representatives that go to Iceland. There's only 10 of them, and they're from all over the map. And Sword Dragon is there too, and so this deal comes out of there after all these Keepstars are killed. What do you make of the deal in retrospect?
I think I completely understand why Sword made the deal. I don't blame him for making it at all. I think that you have to understand, for us in NC Dot, we didn't really feel that we weren't really depleted from everything that has happened over the last couple of months. NC Dot was still willing to fight. NC Dot was still doing fine in terms of activity and everything. But for Sword Dragon and for GOTG, this has been going on for almost 6-7 months now, because they've been the target all the time together with Horde. When Horde was still in Fate, Horde was the target of Init, but there was already some Goon 6 deployed into Pure Blind pressuring GOTG. So they've been pressured and they've been denied making money. They've been denied sort of the normal way to live these days for almost half a year or even more than half a year. So GOTG was incredibly sort of worn out from all the pressure they've received from the Goon 6, and then now this huge war. And I think that at the end of the day, Sword did what was best for his coalition. And I think that's fine. In his position, that's what he needs to do.
Yeah. And at the same time, he's trying to throw an umbrella over the North as well by saying for at least a month, nobody would be attacked up there.
Yes.
So he thinks that, hey, this is a good thing. It's going to benefit us all. We're basically taking a breather, taking a timeout, because if not, we could possibly get steamrolled at this point. And I think from his perspective, he thought whoever doesn't agree with this can be convinced, because they'll see that it's good for everybody, including and Geminate's, pandemic Horde. So
Well,
that doesn't go as planned.
I think he probably just put that in so he doesn't look like a backstabber, which is kind of his thing. So it's probably, I don't think he had the good things in mind or anything with that. He's one of these guys who just likes to make these deals and do it with political stuff instead of actually fighting.
So you think it was
I'm not trying to shit talk him or anything.
Yeah.
He probably agrees. he probably agrees. He's more like the shady deal kind of type, which is it's just one way to play the game. It's a
self-preservation kind of thing. To put that in there.
For sure.
I don't think you can say the Sword's against the fight, but he's definitely not for fighting to the end. He is not Gig X. I'll definitely agree with that.
That's true.
But I think you might be painting him into a bit of a corner where he's done some stuff that was kind of ballsy. He's put it out there. He's gotten into fights and he's there when asked, and he does what can be done. But he is dealing with, and I think all of us look around you, there's a lot of groups where you're I can ask for just so much from these guys before they're going to start breaking down, and that's where real war fatigue starts.
Yeah, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, and a little bit of everything. Who knows? Guess you have to ask. So, but yeah, we weren't happy about that deal at all.
Oh, you were. Initiative was not happy.
What's the worth of a faction Citadel? Actually, I don't know. Willy might know.
It's 40 bill or some shit at this point. I'm not sure.
Who's
It's
buying
20 bill, and they're not easy to sell, to say the least.
20 bill. They dropped a lot since we sold ours.
And we were ready to go, 100%. We actually paced ourselves the entire time, ready for not a sprint but a marathon of a campaign. And then suddenly, this Reddit thread comes up. I mean, I think Bliss knew a little bit before, I don't know, a couple of weeks. But basically, for example, me and Chance, we were both surprised that it suddenly there's an end to this. And we wanted to at least, that's at least what I said, let's at least threaten the northern stuff and see what happens. How do they react? Maybe it's a complete shit show for them, and then they completely collapse or whatever. At least move in and threaten them, and then see what happens. But then this thing comes up. Was disappointing for sure.
So you were ready to go all the way. You were thinking this is going to go into winter, and we're going to finish off the North.
For sure, for sure.
Do you think other FCs were like that, not just in Initiative, but in the Imperium?
I don't know, to be honest. I know Kenda, for example. He doesn't give too much of a fuck. He's just, if there's fights to be had, he's all happy. He doesn't pay too much attention to the political stuff, and he doesn't hold any grudges to anyone. So, like, why would he care? And I think that's probably the case for the rest of the SV squad too. And I think Asher is the same way. So
no sign
he
of
doesn't-
disappointment from them.
not really. I
Like-
think not too much. At least not as on the same level as we were disappointed.
Right.
They seem to
Well,
be
I-
used to being sent around by like a politician. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Just point us in the direction, whatever it is.
Exactly. And that's their mindset.
Didn't Snuff break off of Imperium soon after this?
It was a little later. Like it was right before. It must have been, I don't know, October or something. It's
Yeah,
not that
so-
long ago.
Yeah, that
So
was pretty recent.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it's not one's not related to the other kind of thing. Like
No,
Snuff.
I don't think so. No,
Yeah,
I don't think.
Probably factored into decision making.
I mean,
you don't
obviously.
just break off that kind of a relationship, or at least the public side of it, without a little bit of prep work and a little, making sure that everything's dotted. And you don't want to leave on bad terms. It wasn't like they have a hatred for each other, right? So, just want to rage post on Reddit about it and be like, all right, we're out, like that. That would be a very negative situation for Snuff to
It
be in,
puts
and I don't
Snuff
think
into a
one's
really
realistic.
neat spot, right? Because Snuff now doesn't longer have to follow the Imperium line. Like they can make their own decisions to a full extent. I'm not saying they weren't making their own decisions before, by the way, but I think there is some sort of thing where the Imperium is like, okay, this is the Imperium goal now, and all Imperium members are going in on this, right? And now they don't really have to follow that anymore if they don't want to, but they still have good ties to the Imperium. They have good ties to, well, I don't know if they have good ties. I don't know really what's your relationship with Snuff. I mean, you guys work together on the whole Dread Bomb thing. I guess you guys are sort of like working together or something like that. So they're in a really nice spot now where they have a lot of people they can work with to reinforce their numbers, their own numbers, and they can set up these great gangs and stuff.
Yeah, the diplomatic dream zone, right?
So that deal that was constructed by Aerith and Sort Dragon was signed on to. That created a bit of a rift because Gobbins and Elo Knight decided to attack Sort Dragon. First, it was stated in that deal there was some content for them to ravage. I think it was Venal area. And Initiative has to basically cool their guns, and a lot of the Goon Swarm returns to Delve, and some of them start to come back up to Geminite, where Horde is, because Horde basically gets disqualified. They didn't agree to the deal directly, and this was kind of a funny thing because it seemed like Matani said, like, well, if Gobbins doesn't want to be part of the deal, then let's go attack them. But that's not really how it works, right? You make a treaty, and the treaty stands whether people want to be in it or not. But right after that, I think happens another focus shifts, and there is a surprise attack by Test that comes in and takes over an area of influence that Horde had over HiSec. Bill, you want to tell us when those plans were made?
I think as soon as the HiSec, or not the HiSec, the core of the Summer War was over, we were definitely considering that as something. I like it. It's funny because we never mentioned this at all during the discussion of the Summer War, but one of the most important things for us to do, or one of the weirdest things we had to deal with, was Horde moved their super fleet into Omist during that war. And it was such a weird thing for them to do, where they were trying to be like the skill yourself hard knocks in our rear kind of thing, like to really hurt us in our renter regions and stuff like that. And it was just something that really like pissed us off because it wasn't like something that was actually relevant to the war. It was just truly annoying. And you know, we were feeling sour about it. And it's important to remember, like, before this all got underway, we kind of had like this weird agreement with Horde, where we would stay to their business if they stayed out of ours, as we were both kind of the smaller guys of the world, I guess you could say. So as things kind of progressed, I guess you could say, we were certainly less than impressed with Horde, and we wanted a way to pay them back, I guess you could say. So for us, you know, it was only natural that the best way to do that was to take all of their stuff from HiSec.
Which is definitely way more important than just being annoying, right? Like, they might have dinged you a little bit on their income, but holy crap, like that trade hub probably has to make up really pretty.
Yeah, it's some legit money. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I think at least what ProGod said when it was being attacked, that basically that market was being attacked and taken over, was that he assumed it was 500 million a month, and so you guys were going to take it, and you did. You put down a Keepstar, the first one in HiSec, and you have been fending off little structures around the area that are trying to undercut your business because you're at like a 0.3% tax or something. And the guy that lived there before is not just going to roll over, so he's deployed little Astor houses or whatever at zero tax to undercut you. So you guys clean this up.
And I mean, the thing is, he's just effectively throwing his money away, right? To do that, like he's not making any money doing that. He's literally just doing it to piss us off. And I mean, you know, it's a little annoying, but it's not like, you know, we care that much. Like, we're not in perimeter, you know, because we need that for Alliance income. It makes as much as one of our renter regions, but we have multiple renter regions, right? So it's
a denial of money to Horde too.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was the big thing for us. So the whole thing is just
500 billion, not 500 million. I had that wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Billy, to cut you off, but did it pan out? Are you guys making money too, or is it not? Beside the point.
Oh yeah, we're making tons of money. We're well over $1 trillion disc already.
Oh. Well, and so that was again, you know, Eve Vegas has come and gone. The deal has come and gone. Tess does this amazing thing at the end of the year here, and we think the year is kind of over, and it's been a tremendous year, 2018 in EVE Online. But there's one more surprise left. All of a sudden, I'll just tell you how I came into it, because we covered it live on Talking in Stations. I get some intel saying something's happening right now. We're in Rage, the wormhole that belongs to Hard Knocks. And this is their home system where all their stuff is, or a lot of their stuff, including the first Keepstar ever built. So Panda, can you tell us what happened there?
Oh, well, we covered the story very much in the last days, I guess. So I'm not gonna go over the details, I guess. But you know, it was a long prepped op, and yeah, it was more like a surprise attack, and you know, it caught people off guard, and we burnt the whole thing to the ground.
Yep. And this is a dramatic thing because normally nullsec doesn't have the staying power to really evict, because it takes a while, a group from wormhole space. They're usually too small and it's not a high priority. Usually wormholes are used to travel, to move a fleet through space to get to a different region in nullsec to fight in a fight that's usually too far away, but not to invade. So what do you think the repercussions of this was for wormhole space?
I don't know. I mean, depends on how they, like, it all depends on the wormhole guys, how they react. I mean, Laserhawks took down all 3 of their Keepstars. I'm not sure if they actually needed to do that. I mean, we threatened them one day, because we had that shared static and we tried to get in, but they rolled it just in time. But it was more like for fun. Like an op like this, you have to bring in all those numbers, keep the hype up, keep people coming in. It's different than warm-up people, right? If you're living in Nullsec, getting these guys in and getting them constantly into fleet, it's not that easy. And doing all that, you need to have like that goal, like killing 3 keepsters. That's a little bit too tough. And then it's not even the biggest loot pinata the game has ever seen. So I don't think those keepsters were at risk at all. But
Yeah, but the psychology was
like nobody else is flying Ravens really. So as long as you keep an eye on our CTAs, you're probably fine.
Yeah.
I don't think that much changed, to be honest. I mean, we just proved that nullsec groups are very well capable of doing stuff in warm-up space, and we very well can find some people that know all the mechanics and can deal with hull control and all that stuff. And we are willing to stay in your wormhole for a week if we need to. So yeah, that changed. I think we got some respect from the wormhole guys. They claim we just blob. That's our right too. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, but
we were kind of disappointed by the wormhole people though.
That they didn't fight back hard enough.
Well, yeah. I mean, one fight. I mean, Killer B can probably agree. If you're fighting Stuka and you've got 200 Munins and you're fighting a Stuka fleet of 200, you very well have a chance. And that they didn't reform, it's kind of disappointing.
So that happened, and Fort Knox is destroyed, along with the companion Keepstar, and they're destroyed. Huge amount of loot. I think 2,700 station vaults were thrown into the air as loot, and people went looting stuff, including some faction Fortizars that were captured from the drone regions in January. In June. So all that happened, and then at the very end of the year, just a week ago, Triumvirate is caught on a move fleet. And remember, the Initiative and Triumvirate they shared the prize for most influential alliance last year. And they did do a lot of stuff during the year, constantly fighting under the umbrellas of, I wouldn't say under the umbrellas, but under the shadows of these bigger groups, Test, Goons, and NC and PL. But they were doing fighting the whole time. But Triumvirate ends on a high note by destroying HK, essentially, because now it looks like HK is going in Philikas.
Try.
I'm sorry, Init ends up in a high note, and Triumvirate, because they lost their leadership, ends in kind of a low note because they get caught trying to move.
Yeah, well said, Wolf, and Test. Where else was involved? I think Goons were there. It was like I think the initial tackle was established by Snuff. I think I watched a YouTube video. I think it was them that got the initial tackle. And then Test was aware that was happening. Basically, as soon as the tackle was established, Pro started rage pinging. And then within like 10 minutes, it was like 500 people in local. It was like 300 Dreads on grid or some ridiculous stuff. So it was really sick. Yeah, very, very well executed trap and dread bomb there. And yeah, like we talked earlier, it's very bad for an alliance being caught on a move up. It's even worse when you're already in kind of a low spot in terms of activity, morale, and everything. Tri hasn't really done very well ever since the failed invasion on Test. And basically their leaders are gone, more or less. So yeah, it was definitely not very nice to them, for them anyways. But credit where credit is due, right? They put the effort into the trap, so they deserve to get the kills.
Billy, were you in on that one?
No, I've been actually, honestly, since the end of the perimeter stuff. I've mostly been kind of taking a break and living life rather than going too hard on the game. It's pretty interesting overall how things are when you stay away from Eve for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
I honestly, like, I looked at my phone. I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? And then it's like somebody told me the story, and I was like, okay, looks good. It's a pretty impressive little go to town kind of moment there.
Well, some sweet revenge for for Triumvirate attacking you guys, wasn't it,
Oh, absolutely.
in the summer?
I mean, listen, Triumvirate is one of those groups where they talk a lot of shit. They talk a lot of shit. And like, they're just one of those groups where it's like, they just make you want to punch them, like over and over and over again. And so there's nothing better than seeing those kind of people get punched in the face, right? It's like the most rewarding thing you can have. So, you know, when you see them all of a sudden get punched in the face, you're like, hell yeah, get punched in the face, right? So, I mean, it's beautiful, it's stunning.
All right. That's where the year ends. Pretty much, there's a lot of intricate stories that are intertwined from from World War B and the coalition of the North powers to Killer Bee's post X-47 realization that he's going to put more emphasis on NC instead of the whole coalition. That kind of brings that full circle. And you have Triumvirate wrecking the South for a while and attacking Test, but then also by the end of the year, really getting annihilated as they're trying to move into LowSec in a very, very much a retreating posture. So that's 2018. That was a huge year. Is there anything that you guys want to bring up that happened in 2018?
I don't know. Maybe the GOTG Titans that we saved. That was kind of fun. It was kind of a highlight.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
That didn't end up with us killing stuff, but I very, very much enjoyed it afterwards too. So that was a special kind of thing.
That's some kind of rescue mission for the people that you're your enemies of some sort. Some kind of.
Well, yeah. I mean, we didn't form up and travel to help GOTG necessarily. If you know what I mean, that's not the main motivating factor there. Obviously, it was BL and PL, and I believe who was the other one? There was another Immunant fleet on field.
Horde.
Oh yeah, exactly. Horde Immunants, Black Legion Immunants, and then there was PL in a Stuka fleet of all things. And yeah, we actually wanted to fight them, so. We were looking forward to that fight, and then it all turns out they just abandoned and they didn't even want to fight for their Titan kill. So you could say that was disappointing from some point of view, but it was kind of fun at the same time. It was kind of enjoyable.
You foiled their plans, but you were also you're not in league with GOTG or anybody. Or Sword Dragons group. That was just...
Well, when we formed, it was just a couple jumps out. I think we did the first 5 jumps or so, and in these 5 first jumps, we had a discussion on comms, on Whisper, just like, what are we gonna do? Like, what's the best thing we can do here? And we didn't want GOTG to collapse up north anyway, and that very much felt like one of these deciding fights. Like if you start losing Titans within your super cap range, to not to like some hardcore dread bomb or whatever, it's kind of it's a bad message, right? And then suddenly your dudes or the GOTG dudes would lose confidence and the numbers would go down, and that very much felt like it could be a deciding fight for them. Not sure how much of a deal it would have been in the end, but then we decided to actually go save them. And we actually couldn't reach them because they weren't set up for it. We didn't have like open communications with these guys. So like only 2 jumps out, we actually reached them. And I told them, hey, we're going to show up, but we're not going to shoot your Titans. And I bet they were kind of relieved.
Well, it worked out for them. An interesting moment in the post deal North. All right. If there's nothing else from you guys about it, great job in 2018, especially Pando and Test. Pando with Initiative and Vili with Test. Had a great year this year. Congratulations. We'll see what you guys do next year. That is all we have today. What we want to do is remind you that if you want to see Talking in Stations, we will be on Talking in Stations Twitch rather than INN Twitch next week. That'll be the first as we start moving to our own channel. I want to say thanks to INN for hosting us. I am now resigned from INN, and Talking Station's now separate from INN. And we will be doing our own thing and trying to bring you news from all kinds of sides. And I want to say thanks to all the guys that showed up today. Killer B, Opner Dresden, Pando, Villy.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And great job. Like over the years, I think a lot of people forget how long you guys have been around and you've been going, right? So, like, how long has it been? 2 or 3 years, right?
We're coming up on 3 years, pretty much solid. I think we've missed like 3 shows.
I remember predicting which alliances are gonna die at the last show in 2015.
Were you right?
Well, sort of.
50-50, yeah.
Well,
It's
yeah.
hard
Yeah,
to kill an alliance, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like it was a weird question because it was first like who's gonna die, and it's like, yeah, well, alliances don't really die, but yeah.
What did you predict?
Guys going for a while. Well, I predicted Dunes, but that was only because that was at the end of 2015, and that was when we started working on World War B. So I kind of wanted to say, hey, I told you guys afterwards.
Yeah.
Wanted to call that shot.
Well, it's been great the 3 years that we've been doing the show. We'll try to do more. It is a every week now, twice a week, right? Because we have Artemis helping us out in the middle of the week. So we're trying to do what we can to like get the word out to people about what's going on in this game, and we'll continue to do that. So it's a lot of work, don't doubt it, but it's also a lot of fun. It's great to have the support of FCs like you guys and players from all over the game. Without you guys, really, there's no draw. Like me talking about EVE is not a draw. You guys talking about EVE is. So I'm just happy I can supply a space for you guys to come and do it with a reliable audience. We get like 3,500 listeners to the podcast every week. So the live audience is just a part of it.
And big thanks for the award, obviously. Like, who knows how much influence anyone had? So it's very hard to measure, obviously. But I'm just happy any of the FCs got it, because if you don't undock, there's nothing happening. So
yeah, right. You guys are the ones
Amen.
doing
Amen
majority of the work that gets people out doing things that are visible to other people. All right. So I want to say thanks again to everyone. Now, remember, this is a special plea to you guys. If you like these shows and you want to keep them going, go to talkinginstations.com and pledge some contributions through Patreon. We would really appreciate it. We've lost some contributions recently because people have just supported the show for a long time by themselves, and they need help supporting the show. So thank you guys in advance for doing that. We will see you on Talking in Stations Twitch in a week. And that's all we have time for this week. So we'll see you next week on Talking in Stations.